Good morning, Vietnam. That one.
Yeah, that one.
All right, guys. It is episode 25 of Almost an Agreement. Max is here reminiscing on the wise and wonderful Robin Williams. Sam's in the house. We don't know if AC still exists or not, so we're just going to pretend like he does and talk shit about him like we always do. It is the 29th of August, 2020. The RNC is finally over. I officially have like an actual breaking news story, so we'll start there and then we'll go on. So yeah, I'm turning into an accidental real journalist. Like I have a source, and then I have a second source that confirmed the first source, and the state Republican Party did meet today. The SEC, which is like it's not like the surety. I don't know what the SEC in this version of the term stands for exactly, but it's like the something executive committee. This one. That does whatever that was supposed to meet today to decide what's going on with the Gina Oster, Eddie Manis situation. They have rescheduled that thing for Wednesday, but they did discuss the plans moving forward as far as to not have to have a situation like this in the future. So the meeting that was supposed to solve the current crisis instead solve the future crisis that isn't happened yet. And then they're coming back around Wednesday to
so how'd they solve that?
I don't know yet. I haven't gotten that. That's just what the conversation was.
It's been solved. Don't worry about it anymore.
No, that's what they were meeting about, is how to not have it happen again. They didn't. I don't know that they concluded anything. I was supposed to get a call back, but I didn't get it yet. We may have somebody call in and check in here in a minute on it. But excuse me. So yeah, that's the breaking news in that department. That I just wanted to share because I'm accidentally turning into a journalist. Yes, make fun of my beverages. It's fine.
So you're drinking White Claw, and now you're on to Malibu Splash, strawberry and coconut.
It's delicious.
We always wanted a female on the program.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I do. So, I mean, the big one right now, since last time we were all together, is this Kenosha situation. It's a little more personal for me because I've actually been there in the flesh. I know that place on the planet. Kenosha's 20. I played hockey in Kenosha when I was in middle school. That was the team I played for. I have somewhere around here. I have my Kenosha Comets jersey and sweatpants. Those are my sick pants. Like when I get sick, like I get my sweatpants on and I curl up in a ball and sweat out my illness.
And that's your Kenosha pants.
My Kenosha Comets.
that okay. So, he killed a bunch of white people. So this isn't a Black Lives Matter issue, so we're
what
good
are you talking about? Oh, the Illinois kid?
The Kenosha, yeah.
The Kenosha started with white cops killing a black guy. Did you miss that whole part of the story?
No, I'm talking about the whole...
the little 17-year-old kid from Illinois. Kid,
yeah.
Which that's one thing that the news is failing at because, again, since it's personal to me and I actually know the area, that is literally, like I was joking with them at the shop earlier, I was like, that's literally... Where he lives in Illinois is as far from Kenosha, downtown Kenosha, as the shop is from my house. So that's a 15, 20-minute drive in mediocre traffic. If there's no traffic, it's like a 12-minute drive.
So it's not like, he's from a different state.
Right. He didn't drive. Like Chicago is maybe an hour. Like downtown Chicago to downtown Kenosha is like an hour-ish. But this is, where he was in Illinois is like... It is whatever the county is that's in is the county that touches not only other counties, but one border of that county is Wisconsin.
Well, so anyway, going back to the white cop killing a black, or he didn't kill him, he shot him. He's still alive. Last time I checked, he was paralyzed or something like that, right?
That was the last I heard.
Yeah, but he had a knife in his car, in the floorboard.
Right. One of the questions at hand is whether or not the cops knew it. I've heard different reporting as far as that he said he had it, and that's where he was going to the cars to go get it.
I heard that he said he had it.
Right.
I don't know if, is he conscious now? Like, was this a statement after he got shot, or was this prior to him getting shot?
Right, or after or before they tased him. It was like they tased him, and he's like, I'm going to get my knife.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know about that. I mean... I watched the footage, and I mean, if he said he had a knife in his car and he said that he was going to go get it after, and then they found a knife in the floorboard of the driver's side where he was at.
Right, but that doesn't answer whether the cops knew that's where the knife was actually there. But I don't know that I don't know, because Sam and I've argued in the past about my rule of thumb is going to be let him go. not him personally, but if it has to be there needs to be a better like line in the sand on what is running away from the cops gets you shot. There are certain situations where I think it is appropriate. This may be on that list because I've heard conflicting reports, but for the most part, his kids were in his car that he was getting into when they shot him. That's my understanding of the story.
I've not seen
There's
that.
Two or three, but they're his kids were in the car. I don't know what the protocol is. We were talking about this earlier. It's like I don't know what the protocol is if you have an active warrant, and just like Sam said this to me earlier. It's like they don't go out depending on what the warrant is. They don't go out looking for you. They just wait till they catch you with something else to pull you over for speeding or whatever, and then they arrest you. Well, this was the situation where the domestic was he was involved in this domestic incident where the cops came out because the girl that was the complainant in the domestic assault was whose house he was at, and so she called the cops because he took his keys. He took her keys and wouldn't give them back, and so they're on scene. They know who he is. They know that he is the suspect. They know that he has active warrants out, and so the question is whether whether having an active warrant for it's a domestic assault, and I think there was another evading arrest or some sort of something. I can't remember the whole list, but whether that crosses the line where it's like, all right, this guy he is now an intimate threat moving forward, especially with the kids in the car. Like, is he going to jump in the car and run? Like, is it just not? He's leaving. He's like going to go and he's going to
it's gonna be a run. If he gets in his car and starts driving off, then the cops are chasing him. Right. With kids in the car, that whole thing.
Right. So realistically, if the cops hadn't shot him, is this a situation where it's now a high-speed chase with 3 kids in the car? Does that go through the cops' mind at the time? I don't know. I don't know how all that shakes out as far as the police goes. But to me, there's because the one in Atlanta, with the drunk guy in the Bojangles parking lot or whatever, like that one, there's no need to shoot the guy. He's got nowhere to go. He's walking.
I agree. He has nowhere to go. And, if it happened 30 seconds prior, the one in Atlanta.
Right, we've talked about it, yeah.
Where he, pointed his taser at the cop and then the cop shot him. But after he shot the taser, there was no reason to shoot him.
Right, I agree.
That was, that's kind of, but where do we go from here? That's the real question is, obviously disbanding the police department is not an answer. That doesn't make sense. Obviously, they need to be held accountable for their actions, just like any job.
I think it's fucked up. The New York Times or somebody. I guess they started in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, the Milwaukee's newspaper, was the first to release it, but it's since been released in national newspapers. The name of the cop.
Oh yeah, no, it was released on the when the
I don't know if that's
the police
protocol.
chief gave the whole his description of what happened.
Right.
On that, I
just don't know if that's protocol or I don't know. That just feels kind of hinky to me. That's like, but I guess not. If it's a suspect in a case, it's an active investigation on the Wisconsin.
No, I've not heard anything. Have they arrested the cop or have they
I don't
said
think so.
anything?
I don't
Are
think
they under investigation or obviously it's under investigation, but
right.
They've not made a.
Yeah, last I heard, both officers involved were on administrative leave, which just means they get to sit home and get paid. Yeah,
but the cop that didn't do the shooting shouldn't be. What does he have?
I think that's protocol though. I think it's one of those. That is the rule. Is like if you are out with your partner or whatever, and there's a shooting, there's an automatic administrative leave for a period of time, and you got to go to counseling and that kind of shit.
And apparently, the police union of Kenosha has come out and said that Blake was armed with a knife and "quote unquote" forcefully fought with the officers who tried to arrest him, putting one of them in a headlock. The statement from the Kenosha Professional Police Association also said officers twice shot tasers at Blake, but those failed to subdue him.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
There's just that 20-second video that most people have seen.
Right. And that 20-second video is after he got tased.
Yeah, and there was dispute whether or not the officers were. So I guess one account was that Blake was trying to break up another domestic dispute or assault.
No, he was the domestic.
Because
they released the
911 call.
The 911 call and the police scanner part of it as far as that recording, and it's his ex-girlfriend or whatever. It's like, he's here, he stole my keys, he won't give me my keys back. He's been a problem before or something like that. my understanding of it from the 911 call is that he was the target of the complainant. So the lady, whoever the lady was that called the police, she called the cops on him, not, it wasn't like the other story. I think it was his lawyer was the one where he was there breaking up two ladies fighting. And that's the story I heard.
The only time. Well, the time we're in, the only time that it's going to be a justified shooting, according to the Black Lives Matter people, are if that person has shot a cop with a gun and then the cops return fire. So I think that's the only time, and that's the only time it's going to be okay to shoot somebody. Going forward.
Well, and that's one of our employees' stance on it. He's like, when I was in Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever, it's like we had to be shot at first. That was our rules of engagement over there. And it's like, well, if the Army has to afford that much leeway with a foreign enemy, but we don't have that much leeway with a domestic enemy, which my return on that was like, I agree in principle what you're saying, but the difference when you're over there, you don't know which one is the enemy when you're walking through a town.
No, people have guns and they point them at people, and point them at the guys driving past in the Humvees and all that kind of stuff, and you can't engage them until they shoot.
Right, and you don't, but you don't know which one of the group is the actual enemy.
You don't know who's
until they are actively your enemy. Where in this case specifically, the police went there knowing that this was the bad guy.
This was
air quotes bad guy. I'm not saying he's good.
Let's say you have a knife in his hand. There's been body cam footage of police officers, pointing the gun at the person, say drop the knife, multiple times. It's not like all of a sudden you see a weapon in somebody's hand. It's like, oh, he had a knife.
Shoot him.
Pop, pop, pop.
I agree.
But again,
you don't just shoot somebody just because they have a knife. Obviously, if he varnished a gun, that would be a different story. But a knife,
he's a ninja and can throw it at me.
Yeah.
But either way, I think it's more about him trying to leave with the kids in the car that's the issue, and why they shot him than it is the knife. The knife is part of it, yes, but I don't think the knife is the core purpose. The core purpose is, I think the police felt that they were in a position where they could not let him leave with the kids in the car.
It looked like he was close enough to grab his shirt. I don't. If he was not close enough.
He had it. He was pulling on his shirt. He had a handful of shirt, and the guy kept.
That's like a foot and a half away, and you got your arm around him.
Well, but then at that point, I don't want to be, if he has a knife or whatever, then that changes the whole thing about the drop the knife thing. You're within stabbing range if you have your arm around his neck trying to pull him off. And fuck, I don't know, maybe, and this might be completely out of context, but post George Floyd, you don't want to touch him. You actually touch him, and something weird happens, and now you're the next Chauvin or whatever.
I was thinking about it earlier. If you thought he had a weapon, that's when, personally, I have no police training or anything like that. I would want to put distance between myself and that person. If I think he's going for a weapon, I want to back up.
Well, yeah, I think he was trying to get in the car, though. I think that's why they were trying to.
Right, I think the kids in the car, the car and the kids in the car were part of that, part of the algorithm. I don't know.
So what do you think about this? The repercussion with the 17-year-old kid shooting the people.
When he got arrested, I haven't heard much past him. He's been arrested for it. It's still I don't know. I think it's gross that he traveled to it. It's hard to argue that he wasn't going there looking for something.
Apparently, one story says his mom drove him there.
Right, but all accounts that I've seen and the handful of videos that are out of him actually shooting people, they all at least have a strong premise of self-defense.
No, I agree, and from my point of view is he got hit over the head with a skateboard.
Shot that guy.
He got knocked down. He turns around, shoots one guy.
Right.
Another guy varnishes a gun. He shoots that guy.
Blows his arm off. That was gross.
Yeah, and then shoots another guy.
What?
So I can see self-defense. The big problem I have with it is he's 17 years old and shouldn't be out there.
Right. He went looking for it.
If he was 18 years old, hey, it was his gun, and he can't own it. I can't believe his mom even took him out there. I wouldn't let my 17-year-old kid out there.
And I saw part of the footage where he was walking away with his hands up because somebody was like, "Oh, well, he tried to turn himself in." I was like, "No, he went home."
No!
If you shot yourself and tried to turn yourself in, there's plenty of police officers all around. You could have turned yourself in.
He tried to turn himself in. He was walking in front of the cop cars with his hands up.
Okay, but did he?
Did he?
Yeah.
They shoot him off.
They drove past him. Then he went up to
Okay.
another. He went up to another police car and was holding his hands up, and they were telling him to get out of the way. And he walked over to the the passenger window.
All right, so
and
you give up on? Like, I tried 2 or 3 cops, and nobody really wanted to process me, so I just went home.
Well, I mean,
I just shot somebody.
He tried. Like, I mean, I would say he tried. He tried to give himself up, and they just kept on going past him. So, and what do you do from there? I don't know. I mean, I would say he tried. Absolutely, he tried. Could he have done more?
Probably. Like said, hey, I just shot somebody.
He might have said that to the cop.
Yeah.
I don't know that conversation between him and the cop. I mean, but yes, he tried. I mean, it goes back to AC's thing.
To me, that's
more than 0, not 100. Right? Is that why we wear masks?
Yeah, that's why we wear
right?
masks.
We wear masks for the same purposes he tried to give up.
The same realm of understanding. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's like what bothers me more about the situation specifically is how immediately massive this story is, and the ridiculousness of pro sports and part of it, and how it was immediately the narrative. It was immediately the narrative. The first headline is black guy shot by white cop. And it's like the narrative automatically injected the race issue that we still don't know if it's there or not. Like, you know, and then LeBron James, the worst of them. I'm going to tag him in this episode, see if he'll listen to us and see if he'll bring his ire of stupidity down upon us. Because, I mean, he's like, you know, just some cops wake up in the morning. Today I'm going to shoot a black guy. It's like, really? Now, I'll acknowledge that there might be one cop out there on the planet, maybe more than one cop out there on the planet that actually thinks that way. But the assumption that every cop thinks that way, or that is there's a prevalence of that possibility, is ridiculous. And since LeBron James is on the side of of what the narrative likes, nobody questions such a stupid ass thing to say.
Well, it's the same problem I have with Trump. Like, when I voted for Trump, I thought that it would, since he was not a Republican and he was not, you know, a politician, that it was going to bring the parties closer together, because he was not that person. And in turn, it has divided the parties farther than they have. This whole Black Lives Matter movement has made the separation between white people and black people a lot worse than it was before.
Right.
It's not bringing
But if you want to play fun games on it, you could say Trump inherited that from Obama.
He inherited from Obama.
He did. Parts of it. I mean,
but what I'm saying is,
just like everything else he did, he exacerbated some good things, some bad things. But that is one of the many things. You know, there's been the argument of you know, Trump likes to brag on how well the economy's doing, but the economy was already going up when Obama left, and he just continued to let it grow or whatever. It's like, okay, then if we're going to agree that narrative is the way that things are, it's always the previous president. The current president is picking up where the previous president left off. Well, this race issue is one that Obama really got started, and Trump's just continued to make it worse.
I see.
Because it's always one of those arguments that people like to make when it's like when their party's not in power. It's my president that was the last president. He started this thing. Well, this is one of them, but you're not going to hear anybody claim it.
I mean, realistically, nowadays, you hear a lot more about white privilege, Black Lives Matter, the separation. White people hate black people. Like, every white guy is fucking racist, kind of. Like, yes, there are white people marching with the Black Lives Matter. I'm not denying that, but it seems like there's a divide bigger than it's ever been.
Well, and I think there's been a to throw a coin term out there. There's been a systematic, or at least it feels like there's been a systematic effort to and the 3 white guys sitting here.
I'm not white.
4 if AC's here, 5 if Jim ever shows up again. But we don't know what Jim actually looks like. But anyway, is that it's both sides of the thing. So like we had our not 4th of July, and we had everybody here, and we were talking about we got pretty heavy in the BLM and all that kind of stuff conversation. And it's like, well, there's another thing going on at the same time, which is the white fragility, which is basically what you're suffering from, Max. It's the problem with when you hear the phrase, like when you hear this, a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement stuff where it's like white people suck and this fuck white people kind of thing, that you take that personally. And so I can't remember who the author is, but she wrote this book, White Fragility, and it's a bestseller. And it's basically explaining, it's basically making it sound as if, well, if it's the same kind of shit where it's like, well, if you're offended by it, it's because it's true. It's like, well, no, it's not. But then the denial of it makes it worse, and it kind of runs down that rabbit hole of it. So basically, we've painted this picture where you're allowed to say white people suck. You're not allowed to defend white people on the other side. If you're a white person that says, well, no, not all white people suck. It's like, well, you're only saying that because blah, blah, blah. And so we have these two kind of different things going on at the same time, which although it doesn't technically apply, it's hard to not suffer from it. Like when you hear people shitting on white people, you're like, well, hold on a second. Because you can't say it the other way. If you say all black people suck, you're a racist. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Let's there's nuance here, but but when it gets into the white side of the nuance, it's not a fair discussion because there's all these different pieces that are moving at the same time that make it hard for a white person to fight back. And it's not fight back. It's just, I want to be clear on this. It's like, I'm not allowed to not be a racist.
It's a natural response to feel defensive when you kind of feel attacked or question what your self idealization, I guess.
Right.
Well, it would be if let's take it out and they say, okay, white people are child molesters. Black people are not child molesters. Well, I'm going to take offense to that. So if I take offense to that, that makes it true. Like no, I'm not. I'm taking offense to that because it's not fucking true. Like,
well, no, but the white fragility argument is that, as I understand it, because I didn't read the book, but the white fragility argument is that it's not that your defensive makes it true, it's that you're being racist in the sense that since you're letting a blanket statement of white people are X affect you, that means that you think in black and white. Does that make sense? That means that you agree with the premise that all white people are the same and all black people are the same and all brown people are the same or whatever. The premise is that even though consciously whatever the accusation doesn't apply to you being defensive about it means that you see things in the same color pattern. So you are a racist because you take offense to somebody making a racist statement at you. And it's not that I don't know how to explain it better than that. It's really confusing.
That does not make any sense at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I'll get corrected by Todd.
Did you read the Cliff Notes or just?
I mean, I've
the back of the book.
I've not read anything of it. I've heard numbers of conversations about it, and I've tried to wrap my head around the premises. I think I read the wiki version, but it's been a minute. But the main, I guess the main underlying thing that Trump didn't help with, going back to where we started, I guess this is that there is no individual in America anymore. There are only groups of individuals. There's no one person that is responsible for themselves anymore. It's the group. We have to figure out which group it is and apply it at the time. So like right now it's cops. That's the bad group. And that whole group. And so it's like, LeBron James going out and saying that some cops wake up in the morning thinking they want to shoot black people. And it's like, you just blanketed a whole bunch. There's how many million cops in the United States? And you throw something like that out and think that, but since you're one of those cops, you're not allowed to be defensive about that. It's like, well, fuck no. Yeah, you're going to be defensive about that. You just said that my team that I play with likes to kill people on purpose. And it's like, yes, there are absolutely some. But so it's like everything boils down to whatever subgrouping we make it to. So whatever story you want to do, we're gonna build a group A and a group B, and group A is good, group B is bad, or whichever version of it is. But it's always a group thing. It can't be that whatever Chauvin, the dude in Minneapolis, and George Floyd, that situation. It can't be that one cop was a dickhead. And that one cop had a power trip that he just ran off on there for just this one time, or maybe he has a history of it, and that's a separate problem if there's a history there and they knew about it as a police department and didn't do something. But
absolutely.
Now, it happens in many professions. You've got people that are just bounced from one to another.
It happens with the protests. The protests, and I air quotes hard the word protest because it's hard to say protest anymore because, Kenosha is not there are protests in Kenosha and there are riots in Kenosha right now. And they're two different things, but they run real close together. And when a protest turns into a riot, it's hard to differentiate the two.
Yeah, and when you're saying, oh, the riot yesterday, they're like, oh, it wasn't a riot, it was a protest. Well,
it was a protest until it turned into a riot. I mean, there is a distinct line when it goes from people shouting and screaming to assaults and destruction of property and stuff like that. That is the definitional change.
You get upset when I group all you guys together as rioters, but I'm not supposed to get upset when you group all cops as racist fucking trying to kill black people.
Right, which the best ones right now is like, especially any of these protest things, you find a white lady screaming at black cops about being racist. That's the funny one. There's a lot of pictures of that running around.
It's I have no this has turned my head fucking backwards trying to understand what our country is doing right now. Like I understand there are people out there that feel that we the black race has been oppressed and neglected and all that kind of stuff. I understand that, but I don't understand. And
on some levels, in some places, it still exists, but it's not. It's not a broad spectrum, flat statement. This is a Shapiro thing, and some people hate Shapiro, and that's fine. But what the Shapiro thinks is like there's a difference in saying that there are racist Americans and that America is racist. There's a very big difference in those two phrases. And so if you're going to run on the narrative that America is racist, that is a discussion to have. I personally believe that it's wholly false. I believe there are racists in America, but there are racists everywhere. And so to say that somehow there are racist people that live in this country makes this country unique for that sake, that's a wholly false statement. There is you could go to any country on the planet and you're going to find it. Whether it's racism or sexism or some version of one of the isms, those things exist. Period. It's part of the human condition. I'm not condoning it and saying it's a good thing, but it exists. But it is not exclusive and special to the American system.
Well, I just think there's a lot of shittier things to be upset with than what our country is upset with right now.
I agree.
I mean, there's fucking sex trafficking, child trafficking, all that shit that nobody fucking
Chinese
cares
shipping
about.
Muslims off to concentration camps.
Yeah, whatever it is.
But that one specifically on the Trump hating crowd that's out there, it's like Trump is actively antagonistic with the Chinese. Everybody's freaking out we're gonna start a war with them. But we literally have a Chinese Communist Party who is taking a specific minority group of people, putting them on trains and shipping them to concentration camps, and we know about it.
And I have no idea what you're talking about.
The Uyghur Muslims in China, it's kind of a big deal. You should, or the Hong Kong thing. We could take
re-education camps.
Yeah. Or the Hong Kong situation. We can. There's two major situations in China right now, with China taking Hong Kong back.
With the shit that's going on in America, I gotta concentrate my efforts on one thing. And that's
I'm just saying,
going on in America.
But if we want to if we want to have something that should be a unifying thing to piss us off, the idea that China is legitimately shipping people to re-education camps because of who they are ethnically and religiously, that is a unifying thing that America is not okay with. Even though we did it in World War II with the Japanese, but that's a separate. That was a while ago.
We need to give reparation to the Japanese.
Yeah, you don't see Japanese pissed off about it anyway. But I'm just saying, there are things that are bad in the world that we could unify as a country to fight against, whether it's something inside the country or not. And we're too busy fighting over stupid little shit. There's some serious problems with the criminal justice system. I have hopes to talk to some people about it. I've been made aware of this cash bail issue, which is I never thought about it in any depth. The cash bail thing is crazy if you actually stop and think about it.
I don't explain.
Okay, so cash bail, you get arrested, you go in front of the judge, you get arraigned, you get charged with assault, whatever it is. All right, so you're charged with assault. You haven't been convicted of assault. You're just charged with assault, and you have a court date 2 months out.
Right, as well as at least a couple months out.
Right, so you have a court date 2 months out, and so the judge says $10,000 bail. So either you put $10,000 on the table, and when you show up to court, you get your $10,000 back,
or you put $1,000,
or you give $1,000 to a bail bondsman who puts up the $10,000 for you. And if you don't have either of those options, you go sit in jail for the 2 months. Now, in America, as far as I understand, there's what's the Fourth Amendment, innocent until proven guilty.
Nobody knows anything beyond the first and second.
But the fourth has the cruel and unusual punishment part too, I think. Anyway, doesn't matter. We suck at constitutional law if you haven't figured it out yet. But so if the premise is supposed to be that you're innocent until proven guilty, well, you're not proven guilty until your court date. And so it used to be back in, I think it changed. I think it started shifting around in the 40s and the 50s. It used to be you would get arraigned, and your bail, the version of the bail at the time would be, this is your penalty if you don't show up for court, and it would be $10,000. But you didn't pay the $10,000 unless you didn't show up for court. And so then what really grossed me out about it is when Matthew Park was in here, he was talking about it, is that in Knox County Prison, in the Knox County Correctional Facility, 80% of the inmates in that prison are waiting for their court date. So 80% of those people can't afford even the bail bondsman's part of it to get them out of jail to, I don't know, keep working, consult with an attorney, do anything on their own behalf in that period of time. Whether they did the crime or not is unimportant at this point. That they are on, they're in jail awaiting their court date to find out if they need to go to jail. And that's just, I mean, to me, that's just plain wrong. And it's been a thing for decades. And it's just a money-making scheme for the court system.
Part of that is you have a right to a speedy trial.
Yeah, and that's a
unreasonable search and seizure.
I don't know. You're going to
look up the
court
amendments.
dates, and they always get it pushed back again. It's like, oh, my court date got rescheduled. Yeah, my court date got rescheduled again.
Right, and then if you're in fucking jail for that because you can't afford bail, you're in jail 6 months. I mean, it's probably
and you're still paying to
right, and then you get out of jail, you have a bill for how long you were in there. Yeah, that's a problem. I don't like that. Speaking of Matthew Park, I sent you guys that picture that he posted on Facebook. Yeah. The march on UT. Did you look at that picture, Max?
Yes, I did.
I thought about I thought about messaging and I thought about commenting on the picture and be like, can you explain to me what's happening here? What is it specifically that UT is? What is UT racist? Because that's what
what was the?
It was a Black Lives Matter march. Maybe not Black Lives Matter, but it was.
It's where they're probably going to pick up a lot of people to join in. Would be college
students.
Right,
but college students who are getting expelled for going to house parties, they're allowed to congregate for a Black Lives Matter march. Like legitimately, the chancellor at UT has come out multiple times, and he's already kicked a couple kids out of school.
Yeah, they've already expelled. Is it 4 or something?
Yeah, they're expelling kids from school for hosting and having house parties and too much congregation between students. And there's a whole thing going on. I get it, but it's one of those. It's like, well, freedom, First Amendment. If you're looking up amendments, still First Amendment is the freedom of expression.
Fourth is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, house, papers, and effects, and against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath and or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or the things to be seized. So the fourth is on search warrants,
illegal
basically.
Search and seizure.
Yeah. Which nowhere in that I don't hear a no-knock part of that. Where's the no-knock in there? That Rand Paul story is fucking crazy. If you haven't heard that one yet.
I heard a snippet of it.
Okay, so
he got surrounded at some point in
Rand Paul,
in
who
DC?
It was in DC. He was leaving the final thing at the RNC.
Speech.
Right, he was at the RNC final thing at the White House, and he was leaving the thing, and a crowd of people came up screaming at him about "yell her name," referring to Breonna Taylor in Louisville.
Say her name. Yeah.
Right. Rand Paul is a senator from Kentucky. He wrote and led the bill called the Breonna Taylor Act to make it illegal for police departments to do no-knock warrants anymore. Make it federally illegal to do them, and then it would remove funding from local police departments if they participated in them. So it's one of those, like, the federal government can't tell the state they can't do no-knock warrants, but they can say, if you do them, you don't get the funding that we give out for this, that, and the other.
Right.
The man wrote the fucking bill with her name on it, and they're screaming at him to yell her name. It's like, does anybody else see the irony in this conversation? It's like, literally, this guy is as far as I could tell, the only active member. Fuck, he's technically a Republican. He's not. He tries to be a libertarian. That's a separate thing. But I mean, he's a Republican who has written a bill that the only people that agree with him are the Democrats that hate the cops right now. And the title of the bill is the girl's name that you're yelling at him to yell. He's like, I know her name. What are you guys talking about? Like, it was so weird watching. It's like you were so uninformed on the situation that you're screaming at people about that it undermines your entire conversation. Like, this is the man who is actively trying to do something about this one person's situation so that it doesn't happen to anybody else in the future. And you're going to scream at him like he's not doing what he's supposed to do. It's mind-boggling to me.
So the first is freedom of religion. Second,
You got guns. Yeah, we know guns.
guns. Third, prohibits involuntary quartering of soldiers in private homes during peacetime. That's something that I don't know. No, does people know the third?
Well, it's kind of it hasn't been a thing that could
It's like Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Right. I think
War of
after 1812.
maybe. Yeah.
Maybe so. No, I mean, well, because it says during peacetime because it doesn't.
1791. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be like during the Civil War, you could like theoretically, we're in Knoxville, which is a Union stronghold for most of the Civil War or whatever. But if the Union Army was here in Knoxville and needed a place to put some guys up for the night, they could knock on your door and make you let soldiers sleep in your house.
Yeah, but that's during wartime.
But that's during wartime. But during peacetime, that's not an option.
Not an option. Fourth is the search and seizure. Fifth is protects criminally accused by requiring indictments by a grand jury prohibiting double jeopardy. So that's the one you were talking about.
Right. That's the right to not incriminate yourself.
No, double
plead the fifth.
jeopardy is you can't
Right.
try to convict you twice for the same.
Sixth is further protection of criminally accused by establishing the rights of a speedy trial by jury.
Okay, so 6 is what I'm referencing.
Yeah. Seventh, establish rules governing civil trials. Eighth, prohibit excessive bail, excessive fines, and cruel and unusual punishment.
All right, so between 6 and 8 is the bail situation. It's just I don't know. The criminal justice reform is a real conversation that needs to be had, and I don't know what the right answers are. But it goes under the healthcare, the taxation. It goes under a lot of different conversations for me. It's something that there's clearly some major problems with, and we need to look at, and we need to have actual honest conversations about. But in the current environment, actual honest conversations don't seem to be permitted.
What's the 13th?
Fuck, I don't know.
It's because you're white.
Oh, is that freedom? Is that emancipation?
Abolish slavery.
Yeah.
Hey, we were on here preaching Juneteenth, boy. Don't come at me like I'm not down.
If I can, it's all your white privilege.
Drinking my Malibu coconut strawberry in this house. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's real conversations to be had on a lot of subjects. Like,
this bail company's making money hand over fist.
Right, and a lot of times the bail companies aren't obligated to put up the actual cash. So if you have a $10,000 bail and it's
there's
a $1,000 bond
there on a daily basis, literally
millions of dollars.
Yeah, so they're just like, we know you're good for it. Like,
yeah,
we'll get our money one way or the other. I saw one where there's a bail company just going, and they had their office in a lower income area, but we're going around like handing out T-shirts. And, had their phone number on it and everything, just like getting the public behind them.
And it's just I don't know, it's a gross system, and it doesn't serve anybody except for the bail bondsman, and
it goes back into the for-profit prisons.
Maybe.
Well, no, I guess that would be a city jail.
I don't know how that works. That's a good question.
Yeah.
But, so going back to the breaking news part of the beginning of the story, if I understand it correctly, I will be corrected by somebody, hopefully, on our Facebook page. But if I understand it correctly, this Gina Oster Eddie Manis situation is the Republican Party of Tennessee has no obligation to accept the ballot of a primary.
Really?
That is my understanding of it. My understanding of it is the way it was worded, the way it's worded in the bylaws. I tried to read it, and it's not super legalese, but it's that direction. It's not fully legal, but it's kind of got some of that, and therefore kind of bullshit referred to as all that kind of crap that they put in that shit. But the way I understand it is
aforementioned.
It is the party's opportunity to receive feedback from the public. It is not an election, which I find fascinating, and I don't think that's unique to the Republican Party of Tennessee. I think that's a standard party thing across all parties, and whether it's a local, state, or federal party.
Is it kind of like the presidents? I don't know how many states have that. Like some states, what's it called?
Electoral votes.
Electoral votes have to go the way the state has voted, but there are some states that
the issue that
we talk about the faithless electors,
right? But the issue,
they can. I don't care. Tennessee said they want this person, but I don't fucking care. I'm gonna vote. I'm gonna throw my electoral votes this way.
Now I've got Chris Davis, I believe his name is, the election commissioner, coming in on Wednesday. And I'm going to try to get a little bit more on some of the details of this if I understand, to get an understanding of it. But the way I gather it is that it really comes down to there is law in place. So the law in place allows for the two parties to have a person on the ballot, but the law doesn't say who gets to be that person. The party does. So even if the populace picks a person for that spot, the party can choose whether or not that person is allowed to be in that spot. Now, the reason that this one's a situation is because it got further down the line than it should have. Really, what it comes down to, my understanding of, is the Republican Party of Tennessee does not think Eddie Manis is actually a Republican. But Eddie has a few friends who are elected Republicans that can vouch for him. So it went to the chair of the state party. The chair of the state party in front of him had a decision to make where Eddie Manis clearly didn't do it by the book, but he had some of the exception rules in front of him that fit, and he made the decision at the time that it's within the bylaws. He can run. I'm going to let him run.
The sad thing is, if he would have ran as a Democrat, he wouldn't have got elected because we have stupid fucking voters.
Well, I think at the same time, I think that I think the Democratic Party would have the same issue. I think he was stuck in a position as an individual who he wasn't Republican enough. And he obviously isn't democratic enough. I got in trouble, or I didn't get in trouble, but a guest of ours got in trouble for the use of the party. But fuck, what I was gonna say, I lost thought. Fuck you.
Fuck you.
But running as an independent isn't an option either. And so, like, Eddie Manis wanting to do a thing was stuck in a position where he felt close enough to the Republican Party that he should be able to run as a Republican. The Republican Party didn't feel like he was close enough, but through some of the exception rules, he was let in. And then now the Republican Party is kind of like, shit, this isn't what we wanted.
Yeah.
But for Eddie's part of for my understanding of where Eddie sits in the thing, it's like, well, I can't run as an independent because I got no shot, because it just doesn't work in this town. I can't run as a Democrat because I'm not enough of a Democrat either. I'm certainly less of a Democrat than I am as a Republican, and so we tried to run as a Republican. So I don't like it's like, after having Randy here, I found it interesting in the premise of, like, I get the idea that the party helping a candidate know what they're doing as far as the job is. I could see that as a plus. Like, it's like, this is because that's one of the things we talk about. It's like, I don't know what these people are supposed to do, like what the actual job is.
They don't know,
and they don't either. And so having a party in place that has experience and knowledge and some of the things that go on to be a support structure for that person to do the job, that makes sense. But to go on the other side, where it's like, okay, but the party is going to be influencing you on what you do and don't do, and how you do things and don't do things, like that part I'm not okay with what the party does. So I don't know. It's a weird spot. It's a very interesting situation. I'm excited to be kind of in the know.
When I buy my island, we're not going to have any kind of Republican or Democratic Party.
Okay.
Just saying.
Because there's going to be
the People's Party.
But you're going to have to deal with the property of the country that your island is associated with.
No, I'm going to.
You're going to emancipate your island?
Yes.
Good luck.
Yeah, like the sovereign citizen.
Yeah. being Nick Wagwa and being like, I'm a sovereign citizen.
Yeah.
You don't have any control over my.
And they'll be fine. Just pay whatever taxes you have to pay, and you can say whatever. You could tell everybody whatever you want. Just keep paying your taxes.
No, we're just gonna have. We're gonna build a fort.
Oh. You're gonna have to ally with somebody at some point and export something worth buying.
I want to say it was a Vice News something
Small
I was
children.
watching that was it's all these different people that have kind of like made their own like sovereign states, and they all like got together, and it was crazy to see a lot of them like dressed up and all this like regalia and like sashes and crowns and shit, and they're like, oh yeah, we're from the country of blah blah blah.
Well, didn't it work for Chaz? Right? I just do that. What they did.
Okay, I mean,
Is that not still a country?
No.
Sovereign state?
no, I don't believe they exist anymore.
What? What do you mean they don't exist anymore?
They disappeared.
Where'd they go? They abandoned their country?
Like that's like that is literally Animal Farm.
Yeah,
What happened there? That is literally like that is the Animal Farm
exactly.
that happened in Portland.
Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Huh. But some pigs are more equal than others, or some animals are more equal than others.
Pigs can. What was it like? They can sleep in beds if they wear pants, or I can't even remember. That was so long ago.
Yeah, they walk on. There were certain pigs that walked on two legs, and they were better than the other pigs. Or yeah,
No, I think the other farm animals, not the other pigs.
well, it was no. There was. I think it's subdivided. If I remember right, I think it's subdivided within the group of pigs too. Like they had a hierarchy within the group of pigs by
the next
behavior.
podcast, I will do a reading of Animal Farm.
And I might tune in for that just because I'd like to hear you read, because you swear up and down that you never do.
I was just reading the amendments just a minute ago.
I know, and it was terrible.
It was. Well, what is that? The.
Okay, so what was the so the current situation with Trump in his acceptance speech and stuff, and getting in trouble for maybe breaking what's the law's name again?
Hatch Act.
The Hatch Act.
What's the Hatch Act?
The Hatch Act, it prohibits federal employees from, I guess, while they're working, so while they're on the clock, essentially participating in partisan politics, in the sense that you're not allowed to. If you're an employee of the White House, you're not allowed to do function for the Republican Party as part of your job at the White House. Your job at the White House is to work at the White House and do White House activities. And so essentially what the conversation, as I understand it right now, is that there were White House employees that set up this gala, for lack of a better word, that they did 2 nights ago for the close of the RNC. And so Trump's in trouble for using his White House staff to do a Republican National Convention event. But it's weird because the Hatch Act does not include the president or the vice president as individuals, but their staff counts.
But he's running for president. How does that work?
Right, but he's allowed to do campaigns and campaign events and stuff like that. But he's not allowed to use federal property or federal employees. Anybody who's working on his campaign cannot be an
I
employee.
would say there was also an issue. I know he mentioned him once. I think there was like a group from Space Force that was also at his acceptance speech. I think I read there was also something with them basically being
Space
there.
Force. Fuck yeah.
I guess like in uniform or whatever in that capacity as well.
I want to join the Space Force.
I think you're too old, buddy.
No, I have prior military. There's an extension on
Then
that.
do it, man. Do it. You're not working right now.
Yeah, I got to drive to Portland, though.
And Steve Carell and
I mean, I got to drive from Portland.
One corner to damn near the
I
other.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down that road. That's an off-air
It's
conversation.
a long road.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's one of those that the Hatch Act to me falls under that list of, okay, let's not write laws we can't enforce. Let's make it a point to not write laws that we can't enforce.
So what is the penalty on that?
Well, apparently
He's going to be impeached.
One of the things that's part of the problem is that the department who is in charge of that, of the processing of all that kind of shit, Trump disbanded over the last couple of years anyway. Like he broke that down.
He's like, you don't got anybody to force it anyway.
Yeah, and so
motherfuckers.
so yeah.
The Federal Election Commission?
No, it's I can't remember what the department is, but it's one of many it's one of many departments where Trump has either put in like acting chairs or.
I wish you just get rid of the ATF.
I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of Trump stuff, specifically his Twitter account, that I don't like. But at the end of the day, like one of the things that boggles my mind, and I don't get it, is this whole he's a totalitarian, he's trying to be a dictator kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And like he has done, especially in this particular conversation we're having right now, he has done some stuff that's out of the norms. Not necessarily illegal, not necessarily breaking constitutional law or anything like that, but like, up until FDR, nobody ran. The term limit for president wasn't 2 terms until post FDR.
I was just looking at that. That was one of the amendments. I can
right.
tell you what year that was.
Right, but I'm saying like it wasn't in law until after FDR. But most presidents prior to, I think all, only ran twice, and because the norm was established. Because
1951.
Right, so Washington didn't run.
Limit to 2 the number of terms a president.
Right, Washington only took 2 terms, and then he quit, and then everybody else said, well, if Washington did it, that's how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to seek a 3rd term. And then FDR decided he was special and broke the norm. And so one of the conversations that one of these podcasts I've been listening to is that there's a lot of stuff that Trump's doing that people are getting bent out of shape of, is that they're calling it illegal, but a lot of it he's breaking norms. And so it's a lot of the stuff that just kind of was in place and everybody just kind of did it, but it wasn't a legal thing. It was just a kind of like, well, nobody else does it that way. And I think this one kind of falls under that. It's like, but again, this one.
The Hatch Act is something that is written into code.
Right, but it's not like presidents since the Hatch Act haven't used the office. There's other presidents that have accepted their nomination in the White House. There's other presidents that have used.
You know this for a fact.
Yeah, I'd have to go look it up. I'd have to go find the reference. But
you researched it, I believe you.
Okay.
Hatch Act of 1939.
I think it was Eisenhower accepted his second nomination in the White House. Anyway, I don't remember who it was. It doesn't matter.
Right, anyway, go ahead.
So it's one that the Hatch Act never really had any teeth in the first place, and so nobody ever really broke it anyway. But it's been broken since. And one of the things that confuses me about it is you're going to say, okay, so, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Like Kamala's an active senator right now,
right? And
she's out, and I guess she has a separate staff. Like I don't know how that works. I guess that's one of my questions where I don't quite understand it. It's like if you're in office and you're running at the same time, especially if you're running for a different office like Kamala's doing right now, like. She has 2 separate staffs. She has her senatorial staff that stays in D.C., and then she has her campaign staff that runs around with her. It's a little different. She might be...
I thought at some point you have to step down as that capacity.
No, because what's his name?
Until you're officially in that position.
Was POW or whatever.
McCain,
yeah. McCain didn't give up his senator when he was running as...
Right. I mean, I don't think Kamala's going to give up.
You're not particularly in that position yet. You're
right.
Running for that position.
Right. Because we have a situation here locally.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Where the school board seat 6 just won an election for a county commission seat, and so the school board seat has been vacated, and they're running for the election commission is trying to find somebody to run, and the school board's trying to find somebody to run for seat 6 in the school board, which I can't run for. I would, but. You have to live in it. That's one of the rules here.
So the Hatch Act, a federal law passed in 1939, limits certain political activities of federal employees, as well as some D.C. and local government employees who work in connection with federally funded programs. The law's purpose are to ensure that federal programs are administered in a nonpartisan fashion, to protect federal employees from political... Shit, I don't even know that word.
And this is why he doesn't read.
Story time with Max.
COERCION.
Coercion.
Coercion, yeah.
Is that how you spell coercion? I would have never spelled it like that. I'd probably
Those
put
weird words like you never until you actually see it written out. Like I've said it many times, but I've never seen it written out.
I'd probably put an S in there somewhere.
Right, because essentially, so it's basically saying,
and to ensure that federal employees are advanced based on merit and not by political.
Right, it's basically saying
you didn't come work my acceptance speech. Like you obviously
you're fired. You're
fired.
Right, that your job isn't dependent on the political process; it's dependent on the job that you're doing.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's one of those of many non. There's no real. There's no like. Does it go in there to say what the penalty is for breaking said?
No.
Right.
No, it was just the law.
So yeah, I don't know. It falls in that category of. Yeah, you wrote it and it sounded good, but you never really, it never really had any teeth to do anything.
Well, like you said, apparently it was disbanded or whatever 3 years ago.
Right, and plus the office that was in charge
actually oversaw it.
Right, but they're also the people that oversee it are appointed by the president. So it's really a presidential power to inflict on other people, not on himself or herself eventually. But I don't know. But again, too, it's one of those. It's like, okay, so. The DNC was very.
Did you try to watch any of it?
What? Both? I watched a little bit of both of them.
It was like one of the longest. It was like an hour and 10 minutes.
It was the second longest. I think it was the second longest presidential speech on record. I think is what I heard.
Something like that.
And the first one was.
Okay. Do you want to know what the penalty is?
Yeah, go.
So.
Wait,
penalty is
do we need to check your reference?
Blah 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 blah. The penalty structure for violation of the Hatch Act by federal employees include removal from federal service, reduction in grade, debarment from federal employment for a period not to exceed 5 years, suspension, or a civil penalty not to exceed $1,000.
Okay.
So I can be fired
right.
and not work for 5 years, or $1,000 fine.
Right, but who gets to delve out said punishment?
President of the United States.
Exactly.
I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it goes. It's like it would be the president would have to be the one to sign.
You're fired. You're rehired.
Right.
You're fired. Rehired.
And so it's just I don't know. Like, but again, I tried to watch some of the DNC. I tried to watch some of the RNC. They're both painful to watch. As far as production value, the RNC was easier to watch, if I'm honest. Like, the DNC was like a bad Zoom meeting, where the RNC was actually like a well produced like it's political television, which for some people is very boring, and like overly like plucking at heartstrings on a lot of shit. Like it's like watching the Hallmark Channel kind of shit.
Fuck, there's 3 Hallmark channels on my TV. I don't watch any of them.
I remember that one lady's name that was like that. I think she spoke on like the second night of the Republican convention. Was just like screaming, dark-haired lady.
Oh yeah, yeah. It doesn't really work without an audience, kind of thing.
I'm sure there's already been thousands of memes that have come out of her. Just
the funniest. Did you see did you see that? Apparently, Melania's dress.
Oh yeah, they started doing it was like a green screen.
It was a perfect color green to do green screen on, and so people have been superimposing all sorts of shit on it.
She definitely stood out at it.
These are less restricted employees by the Hatch Act. Most federal executive branch employees.
Okay.
So that would fall under the president.
Right.
Are considered less restrictive under the Hatch Act. Less restricted employees may take an active part in partisan political management or partisan political campaign.
Right. So if you're the chief of staff to the president of the United States, you can actively go on his campaign.
I would say anybody that works for the president of the White House falls under the
right. Basically, if you're the head of any of the departments that run through the executive branch, you can play games. Essentially, is what that says. Or you're less restrictive. Right. But if I understood it correctly from the podcast that I was listening to on it, is the president and vice president, there's zero application. Like it does.
It says the president and vice president are excluded.
Right. Explicitly excludes them. But again, so what I was trying to get to is so the DNC is the bad Zoom meeting. And a bunch of people were giving shit about Trump's acceptance speech because you had like 1,500 people all sitting in the gallery.
I just thought it was really like boring and low energy. I was trying to watch it for it's like 20, 30 minutes
it's teleprompter.
I thought you were mad about what they spent on the thing.
Well, that as well.
I'd be curious to know. I mean, I would assume that the party and the campaign spent the money, whatever the money cost.
That's like,
I guarantee
that fireworks show rivals like 4th of July shows.
I guarantee they spent more on paying my buddy Johnny to not work at ORNL than they spent on the fucking fireworks show.
Yeah, he's made a lot of money being unemployed.
I highly doubt that.
Over the
You
period,
know how
over the
expensive fireworks shows are?
but over the period of time,
He had
know.
fireworks that spelled out his name, and it wasn't just like one set of fireworks.
They spelled
Like, it
out
said his name like 4 times.
It spelled out. How do you? It said Trump.
Yeah.
That's fucking worth it. If he can make fireworks spell out Trump, I don't care if it spells out
they're
suck
doing-
my ass. It's worth it if you can do that.
that
I mean, but I mean,
So, but
just,
again, what I was-
just with Johnny, they probably $30,000. I
yeah,
don't
they
know how many
spent more
people
than
are.
those fireworks.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
Fireworks
how
show was
many
probably at least
people
half
are on
of
his
them.
Right.
crew.
But you
10 or
said Johnny.
50
You were saying just Johnny, but yeah,
But
If
like
you
10 people on his crew, you're talking about $300,000 is probably. I don't
probably
know.
spent more than that on those fireworks too. But
Anyway.
but the point I'm getting to is that it's like, well, we get this whole we have the whole pandemic thing on top of it, where I get where people are upset where you had 1,500 or however many people hanging out, watching him take that acceptance speech live in person, sitting close to each other without masks on. But at the same time, it's like, well, he's doing his acceptance speech from his house, right? Isn't that a good thing? He's doing it from his house. He didn't go do it in a 20,000 seat arena like he did it last time.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that we don't take that into account, or we're just gonna pick apart any fine detail we can make him back.
Well,
down.
isn't Trump donating all his income to charity from being president? So
which
Yeah,
income?
he's giving it back to the federal government. I don't think it was going into a charity. I think it was giving it.
He probably owes it in back
he's
taxes.
putting some kind of fund.
so therefore he
We don't know. He won't release his taxes. We
so
have no fucking
therefore
clue.
he has paid for.
But again, that's one of
the
those
fireworks.
That's one of those things that goes again. That's one of those things that goes on that norms list thing. It's like, it's not a law that he has to release it. It's never been a requirement. It's just always been normal.
Sure.
It's the same thing with like health record stuff.
It
It's always
worse
one of
that
those.
He actually said that he would release them. He's
Right, I
like,
agree.
If you
I'm-
elect
right.
me, yeah, I'll release my tax. And he's like, yeah, never mind.
But see, that's the thing. The nitpicking of the anti-Trumpers is like, oh, how much is he spending on it? How much did fucking Bill Clinton spend on shit? How much did fucking Obama spend on shit? Like, fucking presidents spend fucking money. I mean, Bill
Spend your
Clinton,
money.
how much money did he spend on golf trips and fucking hanging out in the Hamptons and all that shit? Like, I don't fucking care.
No president has golfed more than Trump.
Yeah, and he probably
No one's
owns
been on
those.
vacation
Right.
more than Trump.
And he probably owns those fucking golf courses, and he's not paying shit for them.
Well, he's still lugging.
It still cost us a shit ton of money to have the Secret Service flown in there. And
It's no different. Fuck it.
the Secret Service is working all the time.
bullshit.
That's not a fair argument, but
It's bullshit. It's the Secret Service is on like Seth said, 24/7. It doesn't cost them any more money to be in the Hamptons or be at the White House. Same thing. So I mean, I just the spending. I mean, and it's the Democrats that always get on the spending.
it doesn't matter. It's
of what it is. What is he spending money on?
no.
But they don't criticize
All right, so
when a Democrat's
what we,
public.
what we
when,
need to
when
go.
Trump's in Washington, the Secret Service are not being held up in a hotel. I guarantee you those motherfuckers live around Washington, D.C. They're not constantly having to
No,
put them up in a
they're-
hotel room and book out an entire wing to keep that whole floor secure.
You're probably right. They're barracked in D.C. and that's a federal building that's owned.
I mean, I'll
The
try to
reason-
research the numbers again,
the
but
reason
it's
why you don't see
astronomical the
that
amount of money
is
that it spends
because-
whenever he goes down to Mar-a-Lago.
The Republicans don't fucking care when a Democrat's in office of what they're spending. All fucking presidents spend money. Spend money doing whatever. Spending, I mean, you don't hear about what Ivanka Trump is doing, but you sure hear about what Michelle Obama did while she was in office and what she was going with, and she had Secret Service doing all the shit she's doing. You know, I mean, I don't. The spending is bullshit. I don't think Trump spends more money than any other president.
And even if it's what the real question is, what is an obnoxious number? Because I mean, he gets $500,000 or $500,000 a year as the salary, give or take.
It's like $250,000.
No, it's like four something. It's like 480. We'll research it.
Do we have a way to research that?
Yeah.
Siri.
It's 400 something, if I remember correctly. You know, and then he probably has.
Hey Siri, what is the president's salary? Oh, I didn't do it. Hey Siri, what's the president's salary?
Here's what I found from worldatlas.com. The salary of the President of the United States is currently $400,000.
No, we did.
Yeah. 400 flat.
And Siri is correct.
Atlas?
Yeah, that's a weird reference. But anyway,
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
you're stupid.
I looked at an atlas, and the president makes.
On an atlas, it looks like the president makes $400,000 a year.
But I'm just saying, like, it's one of those, like, in the grand scheme of the federal budget. I mean, what percentage of the federal budget are we going to get upset at?
Should that mean you should just discount like any extraneous spending? Like, oh well, I mean, in the grand scheme, we blew a bunch of money on this other stuff too. Like, well, don't worry about that.
Okay, so but if we're gonna nitpick one branch of the federal government, okay, then let's nitpick them all. Let's nitpick the whole fucking thing because
I don't disagree with
because I know Max will go off about a senator's salary here as soon as we bring it up.
Yeah, $180,000 a year.
The whole thing is a money pit, and okay, if we're gonna pick it apart, let's pick it apart. Let's do it. Let's go all the way down their fucking rabbit hole. But the issue,
Good luck finding those numbers.
right? But the issue the real issue at hand is that it's used strategically from time to time. It's like, oh, this is how much this guy spent because we're mad. Whatever. We don't like this president, so we're gonna pick apart this part of it. And it's like, okay, maybe he did spend more than the last president. But if you're going to say Trump cost $1 billion a year to do his version of the presidency and Obama only cost $750 million a year, $250 million in the federal budget is pennies in the real world. It's nothing. It's money. Don't get me wrong. I don't like that they spend it. But when we have ridiculous, let's put $500 million into the Kennedy Center on top of this $2 trillion CARES Act, so that the CARES Act is to make sure our populace is good and healthy, but we want to pork it with this thing over here and this thing over there and this thing over there. There's 1,000 things that we could pick apart on budgetary issues, and if we want to do this one, that's fine, let's do it. But we need to do it across the board. The whole thing's a shit show in ridiculous spending. I don't know. It's just that one just, like, I get it, but I don't. Like, I don't get how you're, because to me it's like, okay, fine, that's a problem. I agree, but what about this problem? What about this problem? And it's not the whataboutism because I'm approving of this problem. It's let's go get those problems too. But that's never the argument. It's always you're saying what about because you're making it okay. It's like, no, I'm not okay with that either. But you gotta I mean, how many Secret Service members could we employ for years on how much we just put in the Kennedy Center on an act that was supposed to be for you and I to get through a pandemic?
I mean, all any living president, I think, maybe just be presidents, maybe even like assuming their spouses get Secret Service details for the remainder of their life. Yeah.
Yeah. Which
we should. I mean,
no. Like, you think anybody's like tracking down fucking George W?
I mean, he's in Texas, so you get shot.
Like, do you think Clinton? Like, who's trying to like mess with? Clinton?
I think there are people that.
Yeah.
I think there are. I think actually.
Why?
Think
Really?
What would be the point?
I think there's people that would kill.
Because people think they're running a pedophile sex ring.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
And I think there's people that would kill W too if they got the
retract.
chance. I think there's people out there that
Who's going after Jimmy Carter?
that think that he
he's
still
out there
has
building
some
houses. Just man's barely alive and is barely able to hammer.
Right, but I think there are people out there that hold enough of a grudge, and maybe it's something specific in their interaction with that president while they were president or not. But there are people out there that would take a shot.
Did the Brady bill.
How many ex-presidents have been assassinated?
I don't know.
Zero.
Okay.
Is it because our Secret Service is doing their job, or because nobody fucking cares?
Well, I mean, I think Obama's talking about breaking norms. I mean, Obama being active in this campaign is in the last campaign for that matter.
Yeah, what are we spending on Secret Service protecting him, putting him up in hotels while he travels all over the country, supporting these people?
I think
It's a drop in the bucket.
I mean, it is, but I mean, there are other things out there that if we're gonna talk about government spending, there are other parts of the government that we could do a lot more.
Most definitely.
A lot more. At the end of the day, if we wanted to all focus on the government's spending too much money, there are a lot more issues that we could focus and spend time on than presidents going on, golfing trips and whatever.
Right.
As far as trying to save money that the federal government's spending.
Yeah, I agree.
We could buy guns at market value instead of at contract value. That would be a good start.
That'd be a real good start.
And so that's my problem with that is I think, it's like, okay, I agree, we spend too much money, but let's
running joke about NASA having $500,000 toilet seats.
Yeah, no shit. Like, I'm sorry.
That's the point of the toilet seat. No shit.
$1 billion for a fucking space shuttle.
Right.
I've also heard that with some of the military spending as well.
Yeah, when the flat
high
Earth guy built one for like $300,000.
How'd that work out?
He almost made it up there.
And he's dead.
No, he lived.
Did he?
No.
One of the guys died.
No, the guy that was going to shoot the rocket up in the air.
Yeah,
he didn't make it.
No, he died.
I'm pretty sure
his last time. I think he did it once or twice.
Okay.
But the last time he did it, he died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's a good conversation. Like, I follow some flat Earth people on like.
All right, that's all the time I have, then I guess.
It's great. When I first heard about flat earthers, I thought it was a joke. Like, I thought it was like South Park, like, group of people like, oh, flat earthers. And then I started following some flat earthers, and I was like, oh, no, these guys are like serious on the Earth being flat, and it blows your mind that there are people that actually think that. Now, I'll go with you that maybe the moon landing was faked, or I'll follow you on all that kind of stuff. It was like, I was at the shop working one day, and this guy was talking about conspiracy theories for 9/11, and like there was, explosives in the building, and the jet cannot produce that much heat to take down the building. I was following. I was like, okay, I can follow you. And then when he said, there was no planes that ever hit the building, and I said, what?
We didn't have CGI then.
And he was like, no, it was all like digitally mastered to make it look like it. And I was like, so everybody with their cell phones and everybody that was recording all that shit was all like conspiracy, CGI, all that shit, the data records from the black box that hit the building, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I was following you. Like, I considered your opinion on the whole conspiracy theory for 9/11 until you told me there were never any planes ever.
And that's how you beat it. That's how you win a conspiracy theory argument. You just let them keep talking.
Yeah, and then they
eventually they'll get to the point where it's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I gotta go do this thing.
Right. Excuse me.
My phone ringing?
Right. Something. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's if we're gonna do it, like the QAnon thing right now, and it's like, okay. I mean, there's definitely parts of that. I mean, that's the stated rule is like, if you're a good conspiracy theory has elements. It has elements of truth. It has parts and pieces. It's just sewn together it's sewn together as one unified thing that can't be. But I mean, there's something to it. I mean, the whole Epstein thing is a thing. It's a real thing. The span of the thing and how big the thing actually is, and whether he just liked to hobnob and party with, with Clinton and all that kind of stuff, and he liked to hang out with those people as his aside, and he actually had a whole group of other whether all the famous faces that are kind of pulled into the conversation
what was Epstein anyway?
How do you
What
like?
was his
He's
claim
like
to fame?
Nothing. Like, if my understanding of it is
Just super rich.
He owned an island and sex trafficked.
I'm pretty like
like a big business owner. Or?
No, I think he was like a mediocre like hedge fund manager or something like that.
Okay.
But like his New York penthouse was given to him by somebody. Like, a lot of his property was like gifts, like from
Well,
like
who's
real
involved in New York real estate.
Some like yeah, maybe, but a lot of this stuff is like gifts and like stuff like that from people that have real money.
So you get out paying taxes.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Like I don't know. It's just the QAnon thing. Like it's like okay, I don't think Trump's the savior, and I think Trump's an idiot for being like, yeah, they like me. Like that's it.
They're stealing babies for I saw like
he made
some
his money
protesters,
from
a whole
privately
bunch
held
of
companies.
QAnons and hell these signs. It's like they're stealing babies for adrenochrome.
Right, and so how deep the conspiracy of child sex trafficking is? Like it's a real thing. Child sex trafficking is a real thing, but is there some like super high end top of the food chain like fucking like organization that's moving all these people and parts and pieces around to do it, or is it just there's some shit over here, there's some shit over there, and like I mean,
Is Maxine Waters in jail yet?
oh excuse me, I don't know why.
Huh?
Is that her name, Maxine?
Oh.
Glaswell. Maxine Waters is the rep from DC.
Okay, yeah, not her.
Maxine
She's not in
Glasswell.
jail. Maxine Glasswell, yeah, that's it.
Yes.
I know it was Maxine. I had the first name right. Come on now.
Ghislaine.
Yeah, she's a
Ghislaine.
yeah, Maxine. I believe she's in custody. I don't know exactly what the situation is.
Yeah, they had her on suicide watch at one point.
Good. They should keep her there.
Yeah.
Wait, no, they shouldn't, because then they do commit suicide. Fuck. I'm so confused on what suicide watch means. I thought it meant we're trying to keep them from killing themselves, but then Epstein somehow killed himself
Apparently they don't.
On Suicide Watch. The cameras
Suicide
went down.
non-watch.
I don't know. Like that's where I get lost in this. Like the further I get like into national politics, local politics isn't the same thing. There is some shit, there is some shit going on that's kind of funky that I can't articulate, nor do I have proper evidence to make it public. But there's some weird kind of like there's some shit going on that
Big money in the area. We have a very large family
Well,
based out of Knoxville.
but
there's a reason why we've never talked about deaths surrounding a certain former president that we don't discuss on this program.
I'm pretty sure we said his name a couple times. But
Yeah, but we're not going to officially say that because I have a lot more living to do.
that's what I'm saying. Like it's like I can't wrap my head around the premise. Like it's the same thing. It's the same thing with aliens to me. Like aliens, I don't believe I believe aliens do exist. I don't believe we have them. I don't believe we've made contact. I don't really believe that Area 51 is like a testing site where we've got their shit and done their and done autopsies on them kind of shit. But because I don't believe that you could get that many people to keep a secret for this long. That's my issue.
Right.
That's my same issue with the QAnon or the like. I believe there's child sex trafficking. I know that's a real thing, and I believe that we should do the best we can to stop that kind of thing. But that there's some like grand conspiracy where there's this like where they're eating babies and all this kind of crazy shit that they're talking about. That there's this many people involved, and you're gonna keep it a secret for this long.
Well, it's it's like the whole Nassau thing missing. That was last weekend. Like on Monday, NASA reported that there was a meteor.
All right, hold on, time out. We
NASA or
did this.
Nassau?
Last time you started something like this, that we were confused
Bahamas.
NASA.
Okay, I
The
thought you were
space
saying
company.
Nassau.
You said Nassau. That was you clearly said
Nassau.
Nassau.
What's my little country?
That's perfect.
NASA.
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 That was it last Monday. They confirmed that there was a meteor the size of a Volkswagen that passed by the Earth. Like the closest it's ever been, like 2,000 miles or whatever, which I
saw
guess
that.
is close. But it passed over the weekend, and they identified it on Monday after it passed. And so part of me was like, were they like, oh shit, this might hit the Earth? Don't say anything. And then after it missed, they're like, hey guys, we had a close call.
But at the same time, but
We didn't almost die
We
yesterday.
didn't almost die.
but on my premise though, it's that how many people knew about it? Let's assume that they knew about it beforehand, and they're just like, well, we can't say anything. How many people knew about it? Not that many.
Well, part of the thing is, did they know about it and not say anything, or did they really miss it? And it's like, this is your whole job. You have a Space Force now, right? Like,
Yeah, but
how did you miss that? How did that get that close for
literally
you guys
have
to miss
people
it?
assigned to this.
You know,
I mean, and
so
I guess
I don't
not
know which one
necessarily,
it is.
yeah.
I guess I would tend to believe that they missed it because I would have a hard time believing that we didn't hear it from somewhere else. We're not the only people looking at space.
I would
NASA
think
is
it
not
may
the
be
only.
something more likely to, like, kind of hurricane predictions, to where there's multiple predictions and we really don't know until like the next stage where we're getting more accurate calculations.
Right, and it's
especially when you're trying to calculate some space.
right, and it's 2020. So if you told people there was an asteroid that might hit us,
Right.
you'd like to think, how could it get any worse? But
2020, like, don't say anything.
right,
If
Murder
it happens, it fucking happens.
right. Thank God we had to get this year over with somehow. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just it's hard to believe that you could have a significantly large group of people over a long period of time keep something quiet. Now, this one is a little bit of an exception because there wasn't a long period of time.
No, I mean, you got to figure, like, how many miles does the Earth travel in 24 hours? I mean, it travels around the sun, so that's a big fucking area, right? No, it doesn't travel around the sun. It just turns.
Yeah.
It takes a year to travel around the sun.
Astrophysics, courtesy of Almost in Agreement, everybody.
But, I'm just trying to figure out an asteroid that's flying.
Right. And we are rotating.
How fast is it traveling? I mean, is that something that was out of our solar system, and then
Right. We're rotating while rotating around the sun, while the sun is flying at some ridiculous speed through the galaxy.
is it?
Yes. The sun moves. The sun is not
The
stationary.
universe is expanding.
I can't remember what the math is, but
yeah.
it's some like 26 million miles an hour or something like that the sun is traveling.
I want to say I saw
something
something
obnoxious.
yesterday, and I don't remember when exactly it was supposed to be, but Mars is actually supposed to be, and I think it may have been yesterday or today, and I want to say it was only really supposed to be visible as much through the southern hemisphere, but Mars is closest to us than it's ever been in like 30,000 years. And they said it was actually going to be like visible from the eye.
See, I don't believe those people. Like anybody that's
who?
the
This
people
is a
that
fact.
said
Like
that.
we know where the planets are.
I agree. We know where the planet was, but nobody
Knows
in
where it was
recorded history
29,000
knows
years
where that planet was 30,000 years ago. They're making a guess on where they think it was 30,000 years ago.
Well, in the grand scheme, the math is not that hard.
Yeah.
No, it is.
No, it's not.
It is because because we are slowly drifting away from the sun. But just like
I mean, we're able to calculate, the Earth's age going back, hundreds of thousands of years.
no,
As far as
it's a guess. It's not a fact. It's a guess. I mean, carbon dating is a theory, not a proven fact.
says who?
Says a lot of people. I mean, there's been a lot of issues with carbon dating of how they say that this rock is 10 million years old, and then they break it open and they find a coin inside of it from the 1300s or something like that. There's been a lot of situations that have occurred where the carbon dating was not correct. There's a whole situation where some college kids faked a bone for a dinosaur in a dig site, and they carbon dated it from millions of years ago and stuff like that, and then they came out. The carbon dating's a theory, not a fact.
I am not almost in agreement with you on that.
You are not in agreement at all, but that's okay.
This is true.
It's a
I mean, they're scientists that specifically studied just this.
I agree. And scientists most of the time deal with theory. That's why if science was 100% factual, then they could disprove religion. Right?
How do you disprove faith scientifically? It's
Well,
literally impossible.
If you can prove
Faith is a mindset.
if you can prove that we came from apes
Proven.
and not from a higher being, and you could distinctly prove that.
Right, so evolution is a theory only now?
Huh?
Like evolution doesn't exist?
Well, evolution happens, but at what point is it a fact? Like, obviously, if you go back to, the birds that evolve and they need a longer beak and all that shit that goes back to the Galapagos Islands and all that kind of stuff. Evolution evolves.
Evolution is a theory. Natural selection is the fact. Is that what it is? Anyway.
But yeah, evolution is a theory. It's not a fact. But we all believe that things do evolve. Things do evolve. But at what point do they evolve too? Some people say that, things evolve faster than they evolve. And that's a theory, not necessarily a fact.
You lost me on that last bit.
Yeah.
What?
Pretty sure most scientists are in agreement on evolution.
So what you're saying is that the human race came not from monkeys, because we think monkeys as a cousin, not as a grandparent.
Right.
Right. So that you're saying that's a fact, that humans came from, chimpanzees are a cousin, we're not a descendant from monkeys. You saying that's a fact?
So
yes.
Neanderthal and all that.
And
what we're talking about.
I'll use it in a faith-based term. In my belief, yes.
No. You said faith is faith, not a fact.
No, I'm saying I'm using a faith-based term that I believe that. Yes.
You believe that, but do you think science says that's a fact?
Yes.
No. Well, if science thinks that's a fact, then you think it's a fact.
Correct. I believe
it's not a faith.
I believe
it's
in
not
the
a faith
science.
Base.
I believe in the science of it. It was a misstatement. I was saying that I was using a faith-based term and using the word belief.
Ah, okay. No.
That I believe, but in my opinion, I think that is a fact. Yes.
But are you saying that science believes it's a fact?
Yes.
Or it's a theory?
They call it a theory, but they've essentially proved it.
How they have proved it?
DNA.
DNA because...
Archaeological record. I mean, either one. Or both.
Say that again?
What?
Einstein's theorem still isn't proven.
Don't support Max.
I'm just saying it's not a fact.
Right.
Although I think you're wrong.
Well, we're not talking about what you think or what he thinks or what he thinks.
We're talking about the definitions.
To beliefs, it makes
right.
Evolution makes more sense to me than a divine creation.
And I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
But at the end of the day, it's a belief either way.
I agree.
Is the argument.
That's my point, is that it's not been proven. Because if it was proven, it's a theory. That's what I'm saying. That's my only point to this conversation. I'm not trying to say that there's this God upstairs that is controlling everything or any of that kind of stuff. Because,
right. So either way, it's a belief in A or B. But if we're gonna say if we're gonna say A is science and B is religion, A has evidence to back it up, where B just has.
I'll agree with you.
Has more faith.
I will agree with you that there's evidence there, but that my whole point was that it's not a fact. Because
if there is a God, I know he likes to rock. Sorry.
No. What song is that?
If there's a God.
Oh, okay.
If there was a God, we wouldn't have these issues with what's going on in the country right now.
Jesus. I don't know if I can handle this. I didn't mean to say, oh, Jesus to that either.
Baby
Buddha.
You know what's funny? It's like
Sweet
I
baby Jesus.
I've done a lot of religion stuff. And do you know you can be Buddha and be just about any religion?
Be Buddhist.
Buddhist.
No.
You cannot be the Buddha.
Yeah, well, I could be the Buddha.
You could be the Buddha. You could
I
be
could.
the Buddha incarnate.
But Buddhist does not have a defined religion. It's a way of believing. And so you could be a Christian Buddha. You could be a Muslim
Buddhist.
Yeah, Buddha.
Language is
Buddhist.
important.
Buddha.
Yeah, because Buddhist is a way of believing more than a religion, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time we've gotten a religion on this show.
Losing my religion.
See, my song that I threw out of nowhere was better than his.
Trying to. I don't know this song.
This episode brought to you by mid-90s alt rock.
Is that... Who is that?
I'm not coming up
That's
with
REM. That was REM. I
Yeah.
was Smashing Pumpkins. Throw in some Pearl Jam and maybe some Stone Temple Pilots, and we're all kids again.
And a couple tickles, and we're there.
Oh, I had to bring Tickles up.
Tickles.
Who did If God Was One of Us? Not Tracy Chapman.
Melissa Osborne.
No, that
Sounds
is
about right.
If God.
What if God was one of us?
We're not dating ourselves at all.
Yeah, if you thought we were kids.
I'm not dating any of you guys. Fuck you guys.
Oh, ask your wife. I'm pretty sure you're dating me. But I don't know. I just don't. I can't.
Far off this.
Yeah, we did. I can't figure out the way out of this social situation we're in, because it's a social. It's not. Politics aren't going to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no easy end to it. It's all.
Well, I mean,
My hope is it's a time to try to get people together to talk. I mean, kind of like what we're doing here. It's
Right.
trying to get people actually together to talk. And you've seen it happen in a lot of the protests that have happened, or it's actually been a lot of cops that have joined in on the protests. They're like, yes, we agree. Like, we do need to get, racist cops out of this, and we do need to, fix part of our judicial system. Like, we are totally in agreement. We are with you on this, that things need to be fixed and changed, and things could be better.
right, but the politics solution is the politics solution is not happening, which is the issue.
No,
Like,
everybody
there's
keeps like saying that like defunding police is people automatically saying abolish the police. I don't. As far as I know, I don't. I'm sure there are people that are saying completely abolish the police, but I think that's totally illogical. But I think for the most part, people are not saying abolish the police.
I mean, I just think it's a weird. It's bad marketing if that's not your intent. But
How so?
because if your catchphrase is abolish the police and that's not what you actually mean, then it's
That's what I'm saying. Who is saying?
bad marketing.
I don't think many are saying abolish the police.
or defund the police. Either one, it's bad marketing. If your intent is not to take if your intent if you say the phrase defund the police and your intent is not to take away money from the police department, it's to add social workers.
There's a huge
or
difference
something like
between defund and abolish. Abolish means there is no police department.
I'm agreeing with you.
Defund is, yes, taking some funds away from the police.
Okay, so but I agree with you that there are different phrases, but that when even in the defund the police conversation, if you say defund the police but you don't mean defund the police, you mean move funding around, it's bad marketing. That's my point.
I don't disagree with on that. Yeah.
Yeah, like. So the problem is,
from a PR standpoint, it could definitely been put a lot better.
with the situation.
Sometimes they
going
just put things simplistic for people.
But that's not simplistic. That makes it that overly complicates it, because it doesn't. It tells you what you. It's not even telling you what you want, because if what you want is to. If what you want is to not defund the police, but to add social work, because I mean, I don't know. The real thing to me, it's like, okay, so with our current Kenosha situation, how's that any different if we had a social worker on scene instead of a cop?
Well, the thing is, like, you don't need to defund the police. If anything, you need to add more funds to the police so they can have the proper training, the proper, if it's a domestic abuse, you have a woman go out there with no gun and no nothing to try to de-escalate the situation. However you want to do it. But, like, there has to be more training. There has to be more involvement in the police department rather than less involvement in the police department. Yeah. Like, but where we're at right now is we can't say that if I'm a white person and I say, hey, this is an option, and where we're at right now is the one side does not want to listen to anything the other side has to say. Right. This is how it is. This is what needs to happen, and we're never going to have a compromise if both sides can't come together and say, "Hey, let's have a talk about this. How can we fix this? How can we fix this?" If one side is like, "Fuck you guys. We hate you guys. You guys shouldn't be around." Well, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
Right.
You know,
It
and
divides
that's
further.
Yeah, and that it's a fucked up situation.
Counterproductive.
It is, because you
Well,
can
and
go out and protest all you want,
It's
but
the failure of the binary, and that's what that's
we're back to a two-party system.
well, that's what I'm saying is that's
Cops and blacks.
right. That's what I was saying
That's the only
earlier.
thing
Right.
out there.
Right, and that's what I was saying earlier. Is like we are, and whether the question, I guess, the real question is whether there is some divine or evolutionary purpose for this binariness to try to link some different conversations together. You got it, yeah. Sam gets me. You know, whether what is it about us as human beings that needs to function in the binary?
Well, you know what's I forgot what I was going to say.
I mean,
I
I
don't
think it's
know.
more simplistic. I mean, I think it makes it easier for people don't like living in that kind of like iffiness of the in between. They feel comfortable in picking one side or the other and feeling like they're agreeing with at least a larger group. They don't want to be an outcast, the outsider, the standalone.
It's my daughter, well, my stepdaughter, my wife's oldest daughter, who lives with her grandparents. She's 20. She was in college, but she's not going to college this year. She never worked at all. She does some stuff to earn money or whatever, but she lives with her grandparents. She got a Black Lives Matter sticker for the back of her Mustang. And her grandfather was like, if you're living in my house, you're taking that shit off the car right now.
Right.
And she took it off her car because she didn't have a chance. But it's just, I think it's trendy to say Black Lives Matter and support the Black Lives. I think that I don't know how we got here. I don't know how we got to a point where, it's a black thing. And it's really funny that how many years ago was you couldn't call somebody black? It was African American. Like, you needed to be politically correct. You needed to
Well,
say
that falls under the
African
N-word
American.
category. Certain people are allowed to use the phrase. Some people aren't.
Oh, so that I can't call someone a black person now. I think that's more acceptable now that to
Right.
say someone's black than African American. But for a while there, it was not correct to say someone was black. You had to say they were African American.
Right.
But I guess African American lives matter.
It doesn't
rhyme.
It doesn't flow.
I don't know.
I just don't see. I don't like. And we've gone so far an hour and a half into this and not referenced AC other than to say he wasn't here, but the
You're my boy Blue.
the it's more complicated argument, which annoys the shit out of me. But the idea that the problem is that I agree that things are more complicated. I'm not trying to say that we can simplify things. I think that's part of the problem is simplifying things too much.
Right.
But I think there's a middle ground in there that is possible that nobody tries. I think there's a middle ground in there where we can simplify things to a point where normal people on a normal day-to-day basis can consume and understand, where you don't get into the full depths of the complications and how deep things go and all that kind of shit. But it's also not so super simplified that it's AB. Like there is the possibility, and this is not a political version of it, although I think it needs to be that way too. There is very, very possible at least a 3 or 4, maybe a 5. It doesn't have to be a 1 or a 0. We can have more than 1 or 0 in conversation, and I think that's what's missing. It doesn't have to be a 25 point. There doesn't have to be 25 little nuanced little things on every single issue, but I think we can get down to 3 or 4. And I think that's the problem, is that we can't get into that middle ground. And I think we as a society we're capable of it. I don't think I don't think the general populace is so stupid that they can't handle it. I think the media perpetuates it for ad dollars. And as much as I am the capitalist here, I think media fails at its responsibility to do their job correctly, to chase down the dollar. And I don't know how to fix that part either. Because I think there's an issue with the idea that because I think realistically, if we ever got to a point where we actually had influence like had real influence out there, that we would get problems from other media sources because we're willing to talk about stuff that we're not supposed to talk about. And we're willing to have these conversations, and we talk to people about different things that we talk to people about, and it doesn't exist trying to simplify to 4 or 5 points instead of trying to simplify to 2. So I think that's the big thing with the mass media right now is it's just A-B. It's just black-white. It's just 1-0. That's what you get off of Fox. That's what you get off of CNN. That's what you get off of them. It's us or them all the time. And that there is no middle ground, or not even middle ground. I mean, I don't even know what to call it. There's zero nuance. I'm not asking for the full thing, but I'm asking for a little bit of nuance. And I think that's what's missing. Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be, well, this goes back 700 years and this. It's like, okay, I agree that there is deeper levels we can go to, but we can go deeper than we're going without going all the way to the depths. I think it's the problem.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's an economic issue also.
What do you mean?
I mean, you don't see guys making, $50,000-$60,000 a year getting gunned down by cops. I think there's an issue with economic,
right? I think it's another
social standing.
Right. I think there's another binary that is often left out, and I've made that argument before. I think the binary of the have not. I think that one exists too. We just don't talk about that one as much. The have not binary of the super poor and the at least something.
It's just, I don't even know how to approach it without sounding like a racist, so I'll just leave that alone.
Well, I think after Randy last week, especially, I think there's a major problem in the school systems. I think the school system as a whole is, again, we have, I think, healthcare, I think criminal justice, and I think the school system. All three of them are busted ass systems, and they suck. And they suck as a result of the binary system over decades. I think there's this push-pull that's been happening for years and years and years and years, has culminated into what we see in front of us. And without having at least a little bit of nuanced approach moving forward, we're going to stay in this thing. My version of it is I think we take the federal government out of the conversation, and we let the federal government do what the federal government is supposed to do, in my opinion, and we let the states, and more importantly, the local school boards, deal with their schools. And take the money out of the thing too. Let the local schools pay for themselves, and not play these grant games, and not play these, teach this thing and you can get federal money for this, that, and the other. Take all that shit out of there, because what DC wants doesn't matter to me. Take it out. That's my solution to that. That's the start of my solution to that one. I think it goes further. Like Carrie Keeling. Did you guys listen to the Carrie Keeling interview?
Not yet.
She was most impressive. I very much enjoyed having her on.
Who is she?
She is running as a write-in for the seat 89 in the House, Carnes, Northwest Knoxville. Essentially, Lafferty is incumbent, running unopposed, and she's actually part of a group that goes out and tries to get people to run, to make sure that there's no unopposed candidates. And the two, like one or two people, I think she said she had 2 people lined up, and then for reason A or B, they kind of fell out. And it was after the deadline, and so she was like, I could do it, I'll do it, but it was after the deadline to petition.
Be on the ballot.
Right. And so it's kind of like, it's neat, like for structure's sake, like it totally makes sense. You actually have to register to be a write-in candidate. So in the sense that if I went out and said Max the Marine and wrote Max the Marine in, and I went on a campaign and got a bunch of people to write Max the Marine in, well, like the example I put up when I was talking to her, I was like, well, like let's say as a joke, like sports radio is like, Peyton Manning's running for District 7. He's not even eligible. Like there's a whole bunch of reasons why he can't run for it. Not to mention he has no idea. But like sports radio makes a big push, and everybody in the district goes and votes on him, and he gets the position. Well, he can't. for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons he can is because he didn't register as a write-in because he doesn't want the job. You know, and so like me joking about me writing myself in back in the August 6th election, they didn't count them. And they don't count them because, well, one, there could be multiples of my name that theoretically there's more than one. There's the possibility of more than one person with the same name. My name is semi-unique, but it's not super unique. There's other Seths out there, but I don't know if the combination fits. But, you know, you get like a generic name like John Smith. A bunch of people write John Smith in. Well, I'm sure even in just a subsect of Knox County, there's 20. Well, which one are we talking about? You know, that's part of the reasoning behind it. You know, so there's reasons why, and it makes sense in hindsight. Like I never put thought into why you would have to. It's like, well, you know, if 10,000 people wrote in me, then I win. It's like, well, no, because you're not eligible for the seat because you don't live in the district, or like there's all sorts of different like rules in play. So it totally it makes sense why she had to do it, but. So that part was neat as far as the process part, but like she was a real candidate. Like she had issues, she had things that she wants to change. You know, apparently Lafferty's didn't run in against somebody last time either. He's very, at least according to her, he's not very engaged. He's not approachable. He doesn't put opportunities out for people to talk to him about stuff.
What is he running for?
He is the District 89. House of Reps, state of Tennessee, and he is running to continue to keep the seat. He's not really running. That's the point of
because there's nobody running
right.
against him.
But that's the point of the group that she's in a group that they actively try to make sure everybody has at least an opponent. And they couldn't get it set up correctly in time, and so she ended up being it. She was fun. She was really smart. It was interesting. We talked a lot about school stuff with them too, with her too. She was a teacher. She quit. The burnout shit. She's on the same page with me because one of the problems with teaching is that teachers spend just as much or if not more time doing paperwork and shit as they do actually teaching, which goes into state and federal involvement and having to have all this documentation for everything all the time. And it's like they burn out on teaching because you're not teaching, you're doing paperwork. And that's not what you wanted to do and stuff like that. So she was an interesting interview. I've reached out to Lafferty's office. I'm going to try again. Talk to him and see. Because it's not my district, so I don't know anything. I mean, I don't know anything anyway, but I don't know anything specifically because almost everybody we found in the show has been my district, which I totally encourage anybody else that comes on the show to bring in their district people. I'm in. That's
too much work.
I've got my school board. My school board is coming in. I got to figure out the timing, but talk to Virginia Babb. She's gonna come in. It's kind of funny. She's
Would your school board be my school board?
No, it's the same as your county commissioner districts.
So they're all separate? Mm-hmm. So Knox County has a school board for
each district.
Mm-hmm.
And what do they decide?
It's your school board. Well, you have your school board rep. They all go together and vote on things for Knox County Schools. Same way your county commission votes on things for Knox County.
But it helps them represent that particular area.
But in the sake of simplicity, and I love it, your school board district and your county commission district are the same. How neat is that? Logical, straightforward.
Well, what? They didn't want to draw some more lines?
Right. Which it gets kind of weird. And I mean, it gets kind of weird because, you get all the feeder schools and stuff like that. And so, District 4 has, my elementary school is close to me. But then, the other 3 or 4 elementary schools that feed into the middle school that my kids are going to, some of that is District 3, I think, and then some of that's District 4. There's only I think of the Bearden West and Farragut High Schools. All 3 of them are part District 4 and part District 3. And so it gets a little kind of funky. And it maybe realistically it should be drawn. The line should be drawn different for that sake, but realistically everything happens on a county level. Period. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter that that a District 4 rep is representing my elementary school kid, but his middle school is a different district. They all are supposed to work together. So I'm curious exactly what the stuff goes on, and I've made the argument 1,000 times on the show: is kids or not, the school board matters a lot to you. Because if you take Knox County and Knox City budgets and combine them, over right at half of those total budgets combined is the school system. So if you pay any taxes in Knox County, you give a big shit what the school board's doing, because they're taking they're taking half of all of our taxes collected in county. Right. Plus they get state funding and federal funding on top. So $600 million a year. Did the math. Just in county funding, it's $10,000 a kid. Think about that for a second. It really kind of bothers me the more I think about it. So, COVID classrooms, since like a third of the Knox County kids are doing virtual learning. So COVID classrooms are down to like 18 in elementary school. It's $180,000 of budget is in that classroom. And we have shitty results. A year. Not for the entirety of that kid's career.
What do you mean by shitty results as far as like testing scores?
One of the arguments you always hear is like, we need to pay teachers more, we need better teachers, we need this, that, and the other. One of my arguments personally is like the premise of having to go to college. You have to go to college if you're ever going to get a fucking job. You have to go to trade school even. You have to go past high school to be a functional adult. That I'd say that's shitty results. If we can't graduate people from high school after 12, 13 years of schooling and have them functional human beings to go out there and be able to write a check, for fuck's sake. We've had employees that don't know how to write checks. I understand that checks are not normal anymore, but you don't know how to write a fucking check and you graduated from high school, there's a problem there. And $180,000 in this classroom. I don't know how much teachers make, and I said just for the math's sake, just for conversation's sake,
40,000.
Let's. Just for conversation's sake, let's be generous and say 50. It's $130,000 a year for what? Because as Max likes to argue all the time, every fucking teacher is asking for more pencils and paper and fucking tissue paper and all the other shit all the time. Constantly get emails like, hey, if you got some baby wipes or whatever the fuck, please send them in.
I mean, even if you lowered it by one student per class and say that takes care of maintenance on the building and
right. So I'm saying, like, that to me
what's
is
getting wasted. Where's that money going?
Right.
Like that's
and so poor Bab, who has never listened to us before, may listen to some episodes, may listen to this one. I don't know. There's a separate conversation there. And I talked to her for a good bit on the phone, just trying to introduce her to like what we do. And it's like, I don't understand what's going on. I just want to understand what's going on. She's like, yeah, that sounds great. I'll be on there. That's like, and so budget's going to be a conversation. It's like, I want to understand. I mean, just like literally give me $180,000 a year and 18 second graders and give me the list of shit they need to know by the end of the year. I can do that. I can do that.
I don't know if you can do that.
I could figure out how to do that. I could pay somebody $60,000 a year to do that, and pay somebody else $60,000 a year to facilitate that, and I still make $60,000 a year. That's the problem. Like, if you really think about it, it's not about me doing the job. It's not about me teaching. Give me $180,000 a year and 18 kids. I will teach. I will have them taught. I won't teach them. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply that I was the teacher. But I'll have them taught the things they need to know. I'll bring in 2 people and pay them $120,000 a year. And I'll spend $30,000 a year on facilities. And I'll still make $30,000 a year facilitating a teaching project. And have better results than what we're having right now. It doesn't make sense to me. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something that I shouldn't be missing. Maybe there is something out there that makes sense and why it costs that much.
I mean, I know at least like, elementary school, middle school, high school, your textbooks are given to you. Get into college, you got to buy your textbooks.
Right, and they're expensive as shit, but that's contract bullshit too.
Right. Oh yeah, totally.
I mean,
there's some
like
fucked up shit
school,
in like the big
really?
companies that print all.
Hey, hold on, we're gonna go way back. Whatever the subject is that we're teaching, I could find a YouTube video that can do it for me.
Yeah, but
for free.
But in elementary school, the kids don't have books like.
Yeah, they do. They get like, I mean, they're paper, like
What
they're workbooks where they write in them.
Yeah, but it's not like when you get to middle school or high school where you have a math book that you're
right. That's 2 inches thick and weighs 50 pounds. I had a girl that I didn't really date her, but I took her to prom, that.
I had books in 4th and 5th grade.
Right, I did too. But
So
I'm just
You
saying,
don't remember 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah, I do.
Whatever.
you smoke entirely too much. Anyway, I remember I didn't date a girl. I took her to prom, but she was a little tiny girl, and she like in paperwork she got 2 sets of books. She had one that she took home and stayed home, and one that stayed at school, because her backpack was heavier than she was in high school, and so they didn't make her carry all her books home and back because she was so small. Because they're all like 2-inch, 3-inch science books or whatever.
$20,000 a year.
Right, and
I remember our senior year. I don't remember the name of the class, but it was split up into kind of like a civics class and like an economics class or whatever.
I sure as
With
shit don't
the-
remember anything about a civics class.
Semi-civics. But at the beginning of the class, they had us all take what was essentially the naturalization test that anyone wanting to become a U.S. citizen has to take.
Right,
And
you
I'm
fail
pretty
it?
sure most of us failed it, the first time.
I didn't take
And that's
it. I
what
don't
was
think I
kind of
took
like
that class.
mind-blowing. It was like, we're expecting these people. Of course, I mean, when you go to take the test, I'm sure you're given a workbook of all the information, whereas, high schoolers were learning, the whole gamut of education.
Right, and
But
we're
the
also
fact that, we're also Americans and should know.
right, we were raised in the thing, and that's why it's on the test, because
Right.
it's like that's what I'm saying. Like
Or
I
pretty
don't.
much better, at the end of the class.
Right,
I tell you, my middle child in 6th grade, and 6th grade is when they go to Washington, D.C., I think.
are you gonna talk about not getting your money back?
Yeah, I never got that money back.
I think there's a big fifth
That's
grade.
5th grade.
5th grade class. And I
Got
want to
your
say when I
safeties.
middle school, I went to eighth grade when I ended up not going my 8th
5th
grade.
grade. Yeah, 5th grade, they're supposed to go to D.C., and they scared me out of money. But that's fine. No, there was another trip. It was at the middle school, so maybe it was...
In 7th grade, I went to Nashville. We visited the Capitol and other places.
I want to say it was 8th grade, and we were in the classroom. They were talking about what they're covering, and they said that that in 1 week they were going to cover Vietnam, World War I, and World War II.
Whoa.
And
Yeah.
I was like,
How?
in a week? I didn't say anything, obviously, in the class because the teachers were talking about what they're covering. I was like, I looked at Jen, and I was like, they said they're going to cover Vietnam, World War I, and World War II in 1 week.
Right. It's all Russia's fault.
Is this like a world history class?
Yeah, it was
It's
a
just-
history class, and I was like,
I can understand if they were going a whole, gamut of world history.
yeah, what do you cover?
Well, but I don't see. I think it's U.S. history. I don't think you do anything outside of U.S. history until at least high school.
Yeah, it was U.S. history, but it was just like, how do you cover that in a week? How do you?
What else are you teaching the rest of the year?
Yeah, I don't know. Black Lives Matter.
It's the evolution of YouTube.
They've kind of changed the school kind of curriculum from what we were in school.
For sure.
I think when we started, they went to block scheduling to where you had 4 classes a day, where in middle school we had 7 classes every day.
But I don't even know. I mean, I think just World War II. Hell, in history class, that was probably 4 or 5 weeks just talking about World War II and concentration camps and all that kind of stuff. I guarantee if you ask my kids about concentration camps, they have no idea what I'm talking about. World War II concentration camps? I don't know.
Well, I mean, and realistically, it's going to be even if they spend a couple weeks on it, and if I go back and think about it in both college and high school or middle school or whatever, you talk World War II, it's we were the great liberators and all that kind of stuff. It's a biased history. It's a U.S. biased history in the first place, which is a secondary issue. But that's not. I mean, that's either here or there as far as this part of the conversation.
Yeah, but how many millions of Jews in concentration camps is not a biased U.S. history.
No, that's not. That's a fact. Well,
So
there's a conspiracy theory on
Most
that too.
people- Yeah, most people know that to be a fact.
Right. I'll tell you what. There's God, it was
what's
on-
a conspiracy? Wait. We need to go back to your conspiracy theory on the Jews in concentration camps.
I don't have a conspiracy theory on it. There is a conspiracy theory on it. There are people that don't believe that in the Holocaust. They're Holocaust deniers. That is an active
Yeah,
that is an active conspiracy theory to this day.
So that's
that never
Are
happened.
they part of the
That is
flat earthers people?
right. They're the same realm of
It's
people that
probably some of the same people
that believe that the story was propagated to it goes into the larger like Jewish conspiracy, like the larger Jewish conspiracy theory, and the Jews are trying to take over the world kind of shit, is that it was propagated in intent to give them leverage to do X, Y, and Z going forward, and this, that, and the other.
They made that up
that's gonna be
just to get their own Israel.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Yeah, it's that they get one their own country and blah 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 blah. There's a lot to it, but
That's gonna be a rabbit hole I have to go down later.
How do we get our own promised land? Like, tell them they killed like 3 million of us.
I mean, it's a lot.
so-
I
okay,
don't even know.
so
Like, I
no-
try to think about what
not to
was
start a
when I
new
remember.
topic because we're getting late in it. But that's the thing. It's like you take realistically in the history of time, and as far as like recorded history, if you want to take a group of people that have been subjugated more than any other group, at least if you're gonna believe biblical history as part of it, if you're gonna take a group that's been more subjugated and more oppressed upon over the history of time, and then that is not the group that we're talking about trying to fix today. That is a thing. I don't know how to express exactly what I'm saying right now, but
No,
I
agree with you.
that is the thing. It's like there is millennia of history of this one group of people that has been burned in ovens to death, and then most recently in a mass scale burned in ovens, and then going way back to being slaves to the Egyptians, building pyramid time shit. This one group of people has existed through all of that, and they are not the ones that are pissed off about the world that they live in today.
Yeah.
That one to me is something that's missed. But I mean, going back to the school thing, I think there's I want to understand that. I want to understand how, because realistically, last year when we weren't in COVID version of shit, there was 25 kids in the classroom. 24, 25 kids in the classroom. $250,000 a year for one classroom. Help me out.
That was one thing that Mr. Pace was saying. He's like, you can go to, I don't know if it was necessarily the school board, but you can go to certain things, and I guess, I'm assuming he was alluding that it was under the Freedom of Information Act that you can go and ask them for, like, hey, I want to see the
Right, and I mean that's what
lines.
right, and not to give.
I want receipts.
Not to scare Virginia off in the upcoming interview with her if she gets all 2 hours into this episode, but not to scare off. Like it's like help me understand this budget. Like help me understand how. Like I mean, I understand there's lots of schools, there's lots of programs, there's lots of shit going on, but you're really, really gonna have to work. Like show me how my $10,000, my $20,000 of my two kids is getting spent. Like I want to understand this. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm not trying to make you the bad guy here.
You got to pay for school lunches.
Right. Just help me out. And again, I'm okay with the idea that part of my 20 is helping out with X, Y, or Z. That's kicking back. I get that. Like I'm okay with that premise. I'm not trying to say that if the number is 10, if the number is 10 grand per kid in the county, that my kid gets all 10 grand. I'm okay if it's like 6 or 7 that's spent on mine, and that other 3 grand gets spread out a bunch among other kids for other needs and whatever. I'm not. I don't want to imply that in any point that I need to get every cent of my slice of the pie for my kids. But I'd like that's a lot of money, and I don't get it, and I want to understand that.
Yeah, give me that 10 grand, and I'll send them to Webb or something.
Right. Well, that's where it came up with Keeling. That's where it came up with Carrie Keeling, because one of the things that her issue with Lafferty is that Lafferty is kind of a yes man for Governor Lee and for whatever. I don't know the history of it because it was before we started doing the podcast, so I didn't pay attention. Apparently, Governor Lee was on a voucher thing. Like Governor Lee's version of the wall was a voucher system in Tennessee for schools. And so whatever he put it to the floor. My understanding of it is he put it to the floor, and it was held up before vote, and he walked around on the floor of the state house talking to people to change their votes, and then it was voted upon. And so there's a process issue in that in and of itself which is why it did technically pass, but it's held up because it's being investigated for fraud issues. And then the second issue with it is that it's only for Memphis and Nashville school districts. And so I agree there's a problem with that. And then again,
Nashville's got a lot of private schools.
but part of the thing is, part of the premise is that in the state of Tennessee, there's something in, way deep in the Tennessee Constitution that nothing can go into law through the state that doesn't apply to the state as a whole. So you can't put in this is okay here, but not anywhere else. And so there's two issues. There's two separate issues with this thing. And I'm down with the premise of vouchers. Like the base premise of the voucher bill, because as a capitalist, I say, okay, well, I want to make my principal work for my money. I want to see results for my money. And I want to be able to hold that over their head, because right now I don't have that.
Well, just being on the sports side of things and officiating, and you look at the private schools and the difference they make in the kids or whatever is a huge difference. And obviously, you can send your kid to Webb for $10,000 a year.
Right, but you're paying your
How much?
17. I looked it up.
Is it 17 for Webb?
I don't know if it's Webb. For Webb's high school, I looked at what elementary private school is. The Sacred Heart over here is 17 per kid.
Is it 17 per kid?
Right, and if I had 10, I might have done that. If I had 10 from the state, if I had my 10 back from the state, and I was only paying 7 out of pocket, I might have done that this year.
I know. Grace isn't that much. Grace is less than 10 per kid, but private school, it's a difference.
The issue to me was taking money away from the public school system. That was
Right.
until we look at the budget.
That's the problem.
Right, and again,
the
that's
person
in
that
the vision of
does not have that money to put that extra $5,000 up or something.
But the real question is, the real question is, does that taking that 10 out of so for my example, it's taking that 10 out of Rocky Hill. If I took that 10 out of Rocky Hill, does that change Rocky Hill's function? And more importantly, does that change the way Rocky Hill does things in the sense that we need to do better so that we can keep that 10? That's the real issue to me. That's my thought, my assumption, and it's an assumption. My assumption would be that if I went to my principal and said, "Hey, do better or I'm taking my kids out of here," and my principal is saying, "Right now, tough shit. I get my money either way."
Premise. That's, I think, part of the funding. I think in some systems was going on to they equated it to the students' grades essentially. And I think in that scenario where a school isn't doing as well, you're like, okay, well, you get less money next year.
Right.
What does that do?
Well, see, I like, and that's
Turn them into the ultimate shithole.
Right, and that's another question too. Is like, how is this like, how are the schools currently funded? Because a big chunk of it is property tax, and so you take certain schools in the county that are in lower income areas, that are lower property value areas,
They're automatically getting less money.
Right, and that's an issue in of itself. And I think, and that's what I'm getting at. And the idea is like, my kid doesn't need all my 10. I'm okay with my kid only getting 7 of the 10 that I spend on that is spent on him, because
special needs classes,
not just special needs, but some, like, one of that 10 can go over to another district in the county that doesn't have the property value to pay for X, Y, or Z. Like, I'm okay with that.
Finally get them a swing set they've been asking for.
Right. I'm okay with that, but I want to understand it. I want to understand what it is and how that works, because it's like, because in my understanding, and it's all collected into one pot and then redistributed. Now, the question is, how is it redistributed? Is it redistributed by the same collection method? Or is it redistributed evenly? Or is it redistributed some portion in between?
Webb is $21,000 a year.
Okay. So anyway, but that's why I'm very, I don't know, and I get this on a lot of issues, and it's one of those things that I hope to continue to explore as we do this, is that if you break down the simple version of it, the classroom being the particular example we're doing right now, if you break down the simple version of it, because that's what I do when we started doing math on, like, when we're in the shop and we're doing math on stuff, I try to break it down to a per day value. Mm-hmm. So what does rent cost per day? And how much do we need to sell a day to offset rent? How much do we need to sell a day to offset our average KUB, our average this, that, and the other? Like that's how I break things down. It's like, okay, let's do the simplified version. And it's like, how much does it cost to run a classroom? How much does it cost to run a police department? How much does it cost to run a court system? How much do these things actually cost? But break down the simple version of it. It's like, okay, well, the person, the teacher costs this, the janitor costs this, okay. But then you subdivide the parts and pieces because the teacher is in the classroom all the time. So the full value of the teacher goes in the classroom. Well, the janitor does 25 classrooms. So a 25th of the janitor's salary goes into the classroom cost. And you keep breaking that down. You keep breaking all the parts and pieces down to hit where it actually hits. I want to understand that part.
Right.
Because that's the way to understand where the money's going. And at the end of the day, I feel comfortable saying that if we ran that out on one of the particular systems in question, that we're going to find a lot of waste.
We're finding a good chunk of administrative
right
cost.
And the political problem in that is that if I were to run for school board and say we're going to cut cost, I lose. Because cutting cost is assumed to be cutting value. And the problem to me with the school, if we're going to stay on the school example, the problem to me is that the incentives aren't placed properly. And I've said this issue, it's the same thing with the prison issues. It's not the private prison's fault. It's the incentive method that's the fault. That is the problem with we have to figure out how to incentivize things correctly for the result we want. So so instead of saying it's a school, we teach kids, well, what is the result we want? We want kids out of high school that do what? What do we want them capable of out of high school? Do we want them capable of eking out a living and actually but a living, not minimum wage bullshit jobs, but like eking out a living, having a functional lifetime, being able to function decently out of high school? Or do we want to have to push them into college? Because that's my issue is like we automatically push the kids into college because they're not functional out of high school. It's like, well, if they want to go into college, if they have a further aspiration, if there's something past that they want, then sure, let's get them into college. Let's figure out how to make that affordable too. But that's a separate conversation. Because the idea to me of the free college thing, this shifts into another thing. The idea to me of the free college thing that's being pushed right now is that it's acknowledgement that we suck at high school. And so we suck at middle school, that we suck at the K through 12 program. It's an acknowledgement that we suck at that. So we as a state need to continue to educate because we failed down the line.
Right.
And we need to push that into somebody else to finish the job because we didn't do it. And I don't think I think that's a failure on both levels. It's a failure on the level of the lower education, and it's a failure. It's gonna turn into a failure on the college level. Because even so, between the time I went to college and now, most jobs that people want now have to go past a 4-year degree. You're now into master's programs. You're now into.
So what did your college degree do for you?
I mean, there's stuff. I mean, there's stuff in there. If we're gonna equate value, I don't know. I mean, thankfully, my parents paid for it, and I was okay. I didn't come out of debt. I didn't come out in debt. But I mean, at the end of the day, it taught me that I didn't want to be a teacher. That's what college did for me.
But I think there are so many people like the push nowadays is go to college, go to college, go to college. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. And realistically, kids that do other things like electrician, plumber,
Right.
contractor, like
Micro,
that kind of stuff.
Micro, come on the show, Micro. We need Micro in the house.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. They make so much more. I mean, talking about my buddy Johnny,
Right.
you know, journeyman
it's like-
electrician.
Well, you talk to
He makes more money than a lot of people coming out of college
Right.
as an electrician.
right, another reference that people don't like, but if you look at people that have changed the way the world is and have college degrees, most of them don't. Zuckerberg doesn't. Bezos doesn't. I don't think. I'm not 100% on that one. But you look at all these, like a lot of these people that change the world, like literally, like the list of people, most of them don't go to college, or if they do, they drop out. Steve Jobs, the fucking Microsoft guy. I'm just blanking out on it. He dropped out of college.
Bill Gates.
Bill
Bill
Gates
Gates, yeah.
dropped out of college. Because what you get taught in school, whether it's K through 12 or college, you get taught how to do a thing that exists. If you want to do something new, you're not going to learn it in college. If you want to change the way things are, if you want to adjust, if you want to find a particular niche that needs filled, you're not going to learn that in college, because college is teaching you what exists. It's not teaching you what's next.
Well, I think they teach. Hate to say it, is a platform that's going to control you.
Right. They teach you to be a worker bee.
Exactly.
Right. You can go, like, if you're into computers and shit like that and you want to be a programmer, you can go to college and learn how to program, but you're going to program something for somebody else. And 9 times out of 10, that for somebody else may even, at best, barely know how to program, or at least not know how to program by the book. And that's why they made the thing that they're hiring you to do and work on, is because they don't care about the book. The book is not important. The finished product is important. The sellable thing is what's important. And college teaches you how to do the thing that the guy who created the new thing needs done. And so that's the problem with that. So I don't know. You guys got anything else? It's getting late.
No.
Well, Randy was supposed to call in, and hopefully he's okay. He's driving back from Nashville. Anyway. All right, guys. Woo! 25 is in the books. It is the end of August in 2020. So we have survived 6 months of COVID now. Had one close call, at least in the house. Maybe come 2021 we might get AC back. We'll see. Like I said, I got school board and I've got an election commissioner coming up this week. We'll be back next weekend with a normal show. And we're going to keep working on guests. We're going to keep doing new stuff. And y'all have a great night.